the answer of my parliamentary party to that question. And I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is
going to be running the country.
Yes, I think it is rather extraordinary. I think the issue isn't whether someone like that should automatically have to hold a general election. If Andy Burnham wants to introduce major changes to our constitution, he's talked about overhauling the House of Lords. He's also talked about overhauling our electoral system, bringing in some form of PR. I think if he wants to do any of those things, he needs a mandate from the public to do them. To try and do them without calling an election, I think, would be a constitutional outrage.
I've got an interesting tweet. There's always a tweet, Julia.
Yep.
If I can just read this out to you from Andy Burnham 3 years ago. We need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. Well, well, well. That was Andy Burnham actually 4 years ago in 2022. So we're saying stick by your word, be consistent, Andy, and when you're Prime Minister, call a general election.
The battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the Chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people of Makerfield have voted for this guy. Yeah. So he's played a pretty integral role in undermining Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband aren't really speaking. He's going to want a big reward. But, you know, he is, you know, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets.
Lou Hay, I mean, the reality is, look, she served her time. You know, she was cast out of government. The reality is, as you said, she has been central to his campaign. She was central to his campaign in Makerfield. More broadly, she's been central to his campaign to enter Downing Street. He owes her, and she will definitely get a role. I'm not.
What do you say to the people that have texted me in their droves this morning? This is a really corny sentence, but it's true. That lawbreakers can't be lawmakers, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is she's going to get a job. So the answer is yes, they can.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Happy Sunday to you. What a joyful day it is indeed. The sun is still sticking with us. It's cooling down a bit, which will alleviate those people with chafing thighs and sweaty armpits, but it's not going away completely. So that is something to smile about. Something else to smile about is the fact that the wonderful Paul Cox is with me in the studio, as per usual, my bestie.
Hey!
You walk in and I just get so excited to see you.
I don't know what this is. But...
We almost get into the point where we're going to do the dirty dancing lift in the newsroom as you come through the doors and I pelt towards you.
Well, I worried when I first saw you because you looked at me up and down, but I have turn-ups on my jeans.
It's the combo.
Yeah, with some like leather boots.
It's sort of a dark combo move. I'm not really sure.
I'm not sure what I'm doing either.
I'm not sure what you're doing, but it's sort of like dwarf cowboy on the bottom, and and sort of 1980s gay waiter on the top.
I could do it all, me.
Yeah, and an architect on the face.
Gay dwarf architect.
Gay dwarf architect cowboy.
As requested.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I wanted. That's what I look for in a man, as it happens. What do you look for in a man set to be our Prime Minister?
No, don't look for Andy Burnham, really. It's not eyelashes that do it for me. Right now, I think we need some seriousness. I don't think we need any more sort of left-wing socialist populism where they try and outdo each other on the left with ridiculous ideologies. The country's in a bit of a mess. Our defence is in a mess. Our economy's in a mess. Our culture is being degraded and dissolved on an almost daily basis. We need someone to come in that knows what it takes and also sets a vision. I don't want no vision that's got unicorns in it. I want someone to come in and say, we're just going to shut the borders down, we're going to figure out who's here, those who shouldn't be need to go back, and then we're going to start an immigration system.
The recipe is so easy, and you have to keep asking, why are they not baking the blooming cake? And talking about migration, what do you make of this sort of I was going to say proposition. I think I'm looking for proposal to create these safe and legal routes, i.e. capped routes by which charities, businesses, NGOs, community organisations
immediately a red flag.
It's so red flag.
Yeah.
It is so red flag. We know that the NGOs feed off this stuff. They are all part of the illegal immigration industrial complex. They're making all their cash money.
Of course.
The community organisations, well, that's going to be run by the community leaders, and who knows where they're getting their money from and who they're shipping in. Businesses as well. We already know with the skilled visa scheme that you've got kebab shops saying they've got to bring over like 10,000 people from like northern India to, I don't know, operate a skewer. It's so red flag. It's going to go so disastrously wrong. But the thing that alarms me the most as well is every single local authority is going to be obligated to take part in this. So if it ain't in your area, it'll be coming very close to it soon.
It's bonkers, and they're actually offering the measly sum of £350 for people to take somebody in per month. Now, there's 10,000 expected. That's £3.5 million a month, which is the best part of £42 million a year, which obviously goes up incrementally.
10,000 expected.
Yeah, exactly. It's mad, isn't it? They're all just waiting there in the unemployment queue somewhere in the subcontinental Africa, and we don't need it. So where's the value? You have to look. This is what I say about a vision that's into the future. What is it we want our communities and societies to behave and look like? And I don't mean colour of skin, by the way. I mean, what is our culture? How are we going to be seen on the world stage? What do we produce? What does our economy look like? How does it look like in 10 years' time? If you just keep loading people on without any vision at all, you end up with more of the mess that we've got. And there's nothing about our situation now that says success.
Well, we know that the people who are going to be prioritised to come over as so-called asylum seekers are going to be coming from grim countries at war because they're unstable countries, full of violent men, terrorists. So we don't know who we're getting. You know, this isn't, you know, picking the best in the world from the best places in the world. And I think we should be driving a lot more money in. I think it would make a lot more sense to build up refugee camps in neighbouring countries to those in conflict, so people stay in their region so they can get back once they've been displaced. And surely having, you know, you could probably knock up, we were building all that accommodation in Rwanda, weren't we, right? So I don't understand why we don't just say to the legal and safe routes, oh look, there happens to be a bit of a war in Sudan, that's okay, Rwanda's just over the road, off you go, we've got some purpose-built accommodation there, much cheaper, much safer.
I'd bet very good money
if we're going to do anything to help
that Rwanda would work. Now, to what extent? I don't know. And before it was removed, I was always like, we should do this, but I'd be interested to see how it works out. But it was starting to work as a deterrent. Anecdotally, we know that because of the way people moved about Ireland, you know, from the Republic into the north and back again when the deal was removed. But of course it will have an impact in the sense, if you're coming here, you spend about 2 days here in a cell somewhere and then get shipped to Rwanda, you're just not going to bother anymore, are you? Because we're not going to give you the benefits you're coming over for.
It is, yeah, it would work very well. It's interesting, the EU are now looking at using third-country schemes for processing people. But, I mean, you know, if they wanted to do something about this, they could. It's very easy. Because Poland has, because Hungary did. They're signatories of the ECHR, and they just said, we can't take asylum seekers, no.
Poland and Hungary, two of the safest countries in Europe right now.
As a result.
Poland's got a huge defence. It doesn't have an extreme Islam problem in the same way that France, the UK do.
France is in a mess. France and Belgium especially. I think people often think that we have it the worst here in the UK, and we have it bad. Do you know, I've often thought to myself, right, if we've got the grooming gang scandal in the UK, I would bet my bottom dollar they have something similar in places like France,
Guaranteed.
in places like Belgium, where you've got even more balkanisation of sort of sectarian communities, if you will, for want of a better phrase.
It's all like, of course it is. It exists all over the place. It exists where certain groups of people are. It's like, and I'm sure we'll come onto it at some point during the show. It's like Sadiq Khan, sort of. Oh, what do you mean by grooming gang? Well, there's no such thing in London, obfuscating all over the place, and essentially perpetuating the issue. And the reason that we're not solving this is purely political. There isn't enough collective that are saying we must try our best to protect our country. Because if that was the case, then you and I would have much less of a job than we do, because we wouldn't be talking about it in the same way. And there's just not the political will. If you're on the left, for whatever reason, your ideology seems to include this mad relationship between progressivism, socialism and extreme Islam. And it doesn't make sense. But
What are you talking about? Extreme Islam is progressive.
No, well, this is it. I mean, I would actually describe extreme Islam as probably the closest thing we've got to the far right in this country, and yet it's completely allied on the left, and it's held up as a bastion of greatness.
What alarms me most about all of this latest open borders scheme is you have to start digging down into the provenance of these ideas. So first of all, it is almost verbatim a policy document written by the Fabian Society.
Oh my goodness!
Favourites,
can you believe
our favourite socialists. Can you believe it? But also, this stuff goes all the way up to the UN, and they've actually got a document on replacement migration, and essentially, this is being quite willfully done. They're sort of making a noise about, we've got to close our borders, we've got to deport people who've come here illegally. But they actually still want, inundations of people from wherever in the world to move to the West. And it's all there. It's written in UN treaties, UN proposals, Fabian Society documents. And, when you've got a Labour Party in government, you can actually just go back to Fabian Society plans and see what they've managed to achieve so far. They haven't yet managed to do digital ID under Tony Blair. Oh, look, that's coming back, isn't it? The whole idea of, these sort of open, porous borders. There was something else the other day that Burnham's talking about. I'm like, that's it. That's it, the press regulator. That was a big Fabian Society common purpose push after the Levinson inquiry. And now you've got this situation where the Labour Party are pushing for social media to have to promote certain types of trusted media outlets, obviously diminishing those that they don't like and distrust, i.e. independent, free speech, probably right-leaning channels. But this idea of having a very sort of gnarly, muscular press regulator, again, it goes back to the Fabian Society, it goes back to common purpose. They tried to get it in back then, basically in the Blair era. And you can look at these proposals they try to push through, depending on how many terms of government they've got. So, the next summer, if we get rid of this Labour government in, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, if there's a general election before then, it'll just come round again, and they will pick up those plans again, and they'll start pushing them. And they try and accelerate it. That's what scares me. They realise, we've only got 3 years left, but to get those ID cards pushed through.
We have as a society, collective amnesia, and it's why each generation sees Labour once or twice, because it just doesn't make any sense to have them in. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. There were a couple of years under Labour, under Blair in the late 90s, where everything seemed amazing. But of course, after 10 years of that was an absolute mess, and we're paying the price now. But what was the organisation? Fabian and
Common Purpose.
Common Purpose.
Good old Common Purpose.
I realised.
Have you done your digging onto them yet?
Yes, and I realised I'd done a Common Purpose course.
What?
When I was at Transport for London, I was identified as a leader of the future.
Yeah.
And
what
I
goes
did
on?
and I suddenly realised when I did my research that I would do it. Now I was in one of the lower ends of these things, but I do remember specifically. The more I learned about it, the more I remembered that we weren't to share the information that we.
Right, it was secret. What was taught? What was taught? Because I've never met anyone who's been on one of these.
So as far as I can remember, it was all about how to conduct yourself and how to be a leader of the future, etc. Which at the time seemed like
well.
Smashing. I'm now wearing Hawaiian shirts on talkTV, which is exactly what I said I would do. The reason I remember that course is I just kept questioning everything, and it was driving them mad. I remember one time there was this whole section of the course, and I said, "Isn't this just manipulation?" No.
Right, but was it sort of very woke, lefty?
It was very woke. It was very lefty. And we were trying to make people feel guilty about certain things. That's the way I felt. I thought you have to. So you set up this paradigm that makes of how you want your team to look, which is just how they want society to look. And then anybody who has any differing views to that, your role is to try and encourage them back in. It's a bit like some sort of Scientology. Remembering back now, I was only in my late 20s at the time, maybe early 30s, and I just remember thinking, well, I'm going to be a leader of the future. This is what leaders of the future need to do. It's all part of the blob, and I'm going to be in the civil service, and this is going to be great. But there's like with all these things, you can never go, oh, that's incredibly sinister but it wasn't. It was sinister, and the fact that those people in the group were that people in the group, and then you didn't talk to other people outside the group.
And then
and you couldn't take the literature away with you.
No, it's a leftist network. I love the fact you've been on it. That is fascinating to me. Guys out there, if you don't know anything about Common Purpose, look it up. It is. I don't know what it is, but it's something, and it's not okay. By the way, this story, okay?
Yes.
Have you read much about this?
A little bit.
Nick Thomas Simmons. Sending an inappropriate text message to a female MP. Apparently he's 46. What sort of a paper round
That's
did he
exactly
have?
my age. And I would say I look at least a year younger.
You're not looking good on it, my friend. Anyway, but I don't really understand what is so bad about what he apparently did, which is he saw a nail bar near Westminster called sort of NTS Nails or something, and seemingly then sent a female MP a photo of it saying, oh, you could get your nails done here because it's the same as my initials.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, does anyone understand why?
No, so there was nothing really defined. It was just sort of told off a reminder of his ministerial responsibilities. And the more I look at this, and the thing is, because it's all tied up in what's now a toxic masculinity idea that any man who maybe is a little bit too overzealous with maybe his banter.
I'm sorry, he suggested that a female MP could go to a nail bar because it was called NYT Nails, because it was NYT, which is not NYT,
whatever is
NTS.
Yeah, NTS, yeah.
I don't know, NYT's New York Times, getting all my acronyms muddled up. But I'm sorry, why is this? I don't.
Well, it feels to me a little bit of a... Look, I'm glad, because it's a Labour MP, I think it's disgusting, and he should be sacked.
What a vile
They probably should have a general election just on that alone.
Exactly, general election now.
So, but when you park all that zealotry to one side, which I enjoy, you start looking and going, well, it's just... These are just human beings awkwardly interacting, OK? We don't know what the relationship was. He's married. I don't know anything about her at all. But just sharing a couple of texts like that and then her immediately reporting, let's just say, take it on face value, he's done that and then she's immediately reported that. That seems to me like a massive overreaction.
Massive overreaction. Ridiculous. I mean, that massive bear hug I gave you as you came in, that's me sacked now under these rules.
And I do complain to the producer, but they say... That's what Alex wants, and that's what she'll get.
If Alex wants hugs,
that's what
she will demand and she will receive.
Exactly.
Right, shall we take a short break?
Why not?
And if you want to get in touch with us, we want to speak to you. That's correct. Wouldn't it be great to all hang out together around the sort of metaphorical pub bench of
whatever this
goodness.
is. Pub bench of goodness.
Really, I'm a wordsmith today. But yeah, no, come join the pub bench of goodness. We'll get the rounds in. You just have to bring your patter. 03444991000 is the number to call. It's your normal network rate. You can also send us a WhatsApp on that message or leave us a cheeky little fun voice note, a jingle, a tease, a rap, a limerick, a haiku. But keep it on the theme of something politique.
Yes, if you could,
87222 is the number to send a text message. Write the word talk before you text, and we'll be back just after this.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Should we do some messages?
Yeah, let's do them.
Do you know, I feel like I'm in some sort of strange space-time continuum fold, a wrinkle in the cosmos. Because a load of people have been messaging me about Hugh Grant. I hadn't said anything about Hugh Grant.
No.
I've not come on to Hugh Grant yet.
What is it, 1994?
As my dad would call him, Huge Grant.
I love your dad.
Oh, my dad's great.
I've not met him.
He's got a special. He's got his own special language.
Has he?
Yeah, and basically the rule is, I don't know what the rule is, but you kind of know when to do it and when not to do it. It's randomly putting M's into multisyllabic words, but only certain ones.
So give me an example.
Kaleidoscope or celomotape. But you kind of know when to do it and when not to by just a feel.
Yeah, well, you're in tune with him, aren't you?
I'm very much in tune with him. I was brought up with that magic language.
Yeah.
Does anyone else call the telephone the blower? And that's
yes,
a northern thing, I'm guessing.
No, I've definitely called it.
He calls the toilet the netty.
Not heard that one.
I think that's also... I don't think that's just him. I think other people out there call the toilet the netty.
The netty? I wonder what that's about.
I don't know.
You don't actually know?
I have no idea.
But do you use it yourself because you were brought up on it?
Go to the netty.
Yeah.
And then in our household, we always had the remote control was the blitter.
Never heard that in my life.
No, that was very unique to us.
Yeah. The blitter.
The blitter, because you blit.
What was the origin of the blitter?
Don't know. But you blit.
We had one on a cable for a while. In the 80s, a remote control on a cable.
Did you have one of those cool Grundig televisions with the wood panelling?
We did have a wood panelling.
Yeah?
Well, it was probably plastic. It was
sort of faux wood.
Yeah, it would have been faux wood.
Anyway, let's do some messages. Mervyn Wiltsh says, "Morning, Alex. After a double take, very nice summer dress. However, first look, I did wonder if you only had fancy underwear on." It's a dress. I can guarantee you that there is cloth under the table. Morning, Alex. This new government are crap.
OK.
Are the Labour MPs going to take immigrants into their homes? No. I'd have liked it if that message just said, this new...
It's a very good point, though, because there isn't a single righty that's going to take anyone in, and now it's going to test the left, because, migrants welcome. It's like, OK.
Go on, then. In your own house. But here we go, Hugh Grant. What gives a washed-up has-been actor the right to think he can interfere in politics and censor the British electorate? Let Hugh Grant put his money where his mouth is and stand for election. Then we will see if he has a mandate to speak for his constituents. So let's talk about what this is about, because basically he's been campaigning for press regulation for ages, since he was hacked. His phone was hacked in the News of the World's scandal, and then created a campaign group, Hacked Off. And for 15 years, Hacked Off has demanded state regulation of Fleet Street. It wants ministers to push ahead with the second part of the Leveson inquiry into the culture and ethics of the press, which was launched in the wake of the phone hacking scandal at Rupert Murdoch's newspaper empire. Uncle Rupert, the big boss, the main man.
Roops, as we call him.
We love Roops. But they've been pushing for this. And but if you look at this, it actually does go back to something to the people who set up Old Common Purpose. It's, look, I think in the UK we have a very brilliant print press. You know what you're getting when you buy a paper, right? You know, I know what I'm getting if I buy The Guardian, I know what sort of spin, I know what sort of angle, I know what I'm getting if I buy The Sun, The Times, The Telegraph. But it is free speech, there is regulation, there's law anyway, there's media law governing things such as, you know, whether or not something is in public information, the right to privacy and all the rest of it. There is also libel law. You know, if you start regulating this, that is basically going to take the sort of linchpin out of the whole sort of mosaic of our freedoms.
Absolutely. We need that freedom. And sometimes it is intrusive, I agree, and it does cause problems. And what happened with the phone hacking scandal was a massive issue. That you know,
yeah, it was...
nobody's saying we need more of that. Thank you for the tea, by the way. Cheers, Kira.
Yeah, thanks, Kira.
Yeah, she's
lovely Kira, who's sort of like crawling like a ninja just off camera, trying to push tea across the...
I mean, she probably doesn't like the fact that
I think we're loosey-goosey on a weekend. Kira, you're lovely. Just walk in front of the camera. We don't care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone gets to see the magic that goes on behind the two-way glass there. All the weirdos that sit in that. Where has everyone gone? It's just Ratty and Prince in there. Everyone else seems to have binned off duties
Yeah,
today.
they don't. They're not worried about us because they know this is going to be a high-quality, high-octane, high-standard output.
We don't need babysitting.
We don't need babysitting at all. But I tell you what, I can understand why they think that maybe editors of newspapers might need babysitting. You see the way I did that? Straight back in.
Hey, segue. That's why we get you here.
That's why I'm here. But I don't want to see it. And you know what? I'd rather take the risk of it sometimes, occasionally overstepping the mark, but us getting to the truth of things. We love our news. You and I love the news, right? OK? We like the fact that we can talk about things, we can challenge things. We can be challenged. You know, we're not just free. We are free to say what we want here. Of course we are. It's fantastic. We're also free to be challenged. People can call in, they can send messages, and they can ring in and talk to us. And we've seen it a lot.
The other thing that a lot of people don't understand is in so many countries of the world, if you want a certain story in a newspaper, you can just pay a journalist to write it and stick it in a newspaper. That does not happen in our free press. And, you know, there are people who come over. We've got a very sort of, you know... It's got a strong bite and a loud bark, our press. It does. When you're in the public eye, you have to understand that you're going to have rubbish thrown at you. It's not just going to be sort of, you know, edifying and celebratory like Meghan Markle expected. You know, she wanted every single newspaper report about her to sort of portray her as this amazing Disney princess. And for a while, frankly, that the papers did. But as soon as they started doing any sort of slight criticism, boom, she couldn't take it. And I think we need that in our print press. You know, if you go into politics, expect stuff like this. Expect front pages about what you're doing. You're in the public eye. You have chosen to take on that role. Now, we know already with the COVID inquiry how much messing about, suppression, manipulation, psyops were used to control the narrative at every single twist and turn. And if we start opening up for there to be a state regulator, even if it is sort of, you know, nominally independent like Ofcom, I worry about whether it's answerable to the government of the day and the government of the day's agenda, and whether all of a sudden you've got the nudge unit then phoning the regulator saying, oh, by the way, you know, during this pandemic, we've got to make sure that nobody goes and sits on a park bench, so we need you to start writing this information. You're not allowed to publish stories from dissenting voices. This happened so heavily on social media during the pandemic. It was absolutely absolutely dystopian. It was terrifying what they learnt to do very quickly. And not just in this country, the whole world learnt to be able to push a lie about that's some sort of, you know, mad interaction between a blimmin' pangolin and a fruit bat, and it resulted in some global pandemic. Nothing to do with that laboratory.
Well, every conspiracy theory about the laboratory has become true.
Because
it's now just common parlance. It's not you and I can have this conversation now.
It came out of that lab. We know it came out of that lab. Tulsi Gabbard, on her way out of being head of
she's done a good service there.
Yeah. She published all of the files on Fauci. You know, and yet, if you remember at the very beginning, Trump was lambasted for talking about China and the way China was behaving, talking about it coming out of a lab. He was called a mad person, a conspiracy theorist, and we were told, weren't we, that this was a terrible pathogen, that the R rates, we kept being told that it's so dangerous and deadly and it's going to kill loads of people. The good old R rate, don't you forget that. Just all of it was mass manipulation on a scale I have never seen. And we know that they did it during the pandemic. We know we're getting more and more information on the extent to which they did that. And so I feel like now they've run it out of the box. Now they've given it a road test. Now they've spun a, psyop on that scale around the park. They now want the tools permanently. And good old Hugh Grant is going to try and get it for them.
Unlike the person who messaged in earlier, as far as I'm concerned, Hugh Grant can have his opinion. I don't care what that is, but he's free to share it. And if he, we know he's a Labour supporter. We know he was up there supporting Burnham. A number of celebrities went up there and did the same. I don't see that as interference. I think that all you need to counteract that is good policies and good politicians. And then someone like Hugh Grant just disappeared into the noise. I don't think it's an issue. The most disturbing thing with regards to COVID was how they use people's fear to control people.
Yeah.
And what I'm always flabbergasted by is how many people are quite happy for that, really.
There's a lot of people. There's something especially, I think, in the British psyche that we I think, was it, what's that guy called? Bill... writes books,
Bryant.
Notes from a Small Island.
Yeah, is it Bryant? No, Bill...
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's quite funny as well.
He was the Chancellor at Durham University when I was there. Bill Bryson?
Yes, Bryson or Brian or
Bill
something.
Bryson, that was
Bryson.
him. He wrote something like, if ever socialism was going to be executed and work properly, it would work really well in Britain because of the British mindset, because we have so many more mores and unspoken rules. We love to queue. You really realise this when you get out of Britain and go to other countries, how we've got such an internalised system culturally, which is based upon discipline, hierarchy, a certain amount of sort of etiquette and public behaviour, that there is something very British about following instructions and wanting to have rules, that there are loads of people out there, they'd love it, wouldn't they? If there was another lockdown, they'd be like, get in. I'd love it.
At first there was fear for a lot of people, and I understand that. They were told certain things, like this is a killer virus. And at that time we saw, endless images from Italian intensive care units where...
And people just dropping dead in the streets of China.
Yeah. But when you see that, and I try to think back of sort of February or March of 2020. I probably got caught up in that myself. I know I was particularly worried about it. I was working in London at the time, travelling back to Hampshire. No one in Hampshire I spoke to seemed to care about it. And now I'm going, this is a serious thing, guys. We need to worry about it. And wiping down, food packages.
What I hate are these people who do this sort of anachronistic offence archaeology over COVID. And we say, well, I never had the jab. Why did you get the jab? Alex Phillips once said that she got the jabs and was proud of it. I'm like... You weren't, you're not a psychic. Anyone who's like, well, I knew from the beginning there was nothing wrong with COVID, me. It's like, no, you didn't. Nobody did.
No.
Don't lie. Unless you're sort of Fauci himself, and even he, I don't think, knew. It's when people go, I knew, I blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you
People are natural contrarians, and that, sometimes that's got a 50-50 win rate, isn't it? You can say, oh, that's a load of rubbish, and it turns out it's not, or it turns out it is, and you can claim that you're a genius. I think what happened, actually, is people started to wake up when they could see what they were being told as evidently not true, or at least not on the scale that they were being told. And then they're like, well, if that's not necessarily true, why am I doing that?
Yeah, you keep pulling that thread.
Oh my God! And I've not been able to pay my bills for 3 months, and now I can't even work because they're saying I can't work. And, oh, this is terrible.
For me, it was when I'd had COVID and realised I had COVID because I was early.
I got it in March 2020.
I was January, February.
Right.
Yeah, no, basically, yeah, Jan Feb. Lost taste and smell before, but nothing had even locked down when I had it. And when I found out I had, and afterwards, it's like, oh, so that's what that was. Oh, I'm fine. Can I go back to work? No. Right, let's do some messages because we've been sent a haiku.
A haiku?
We've got a haiku.
Oh, my goodness.
It's brilliant. This is my hot take. To get rid of the migrants, pop them on the bus.
That's it.
That's a haiku,
and it does
That's
work.
A haiku.
Who was
We
that
loved
from?
it. That was, I believe it's from someone called Dan. They didn't leave their name. Nishan in Cape Town, going around the world.
Yeah,
we've still got to get our scratchy map.
We need to get a scratchy map. Yeah, we forgot about that. Have to make one first.
We need some merch, basically.
Team, get onto it.
Get a scratchy map stat. It's a proper miserable day here in Cape Town. 12 degrees centigrade and serious rain and wind.
Wow.
Well, I'm sorry, you get much better weather for every other day of the year, so...
Are they in their winter there? They south of the equator?
Yeah, must be winter over there. You are currently the brightest part of my day. Oh, says Nishan, I'm supposed to say something political. Well, you don't have to. Burnham is going to be more of the same or more than more of the same. How does the UK demand a general election? Well, constitutionally, we can't, really. That's the problem.
No.
Maggie in London says, I can't wait for these refugees are welcome mobs to get a big HMO right next door to where they live. Bet they'd soon change their tune.
Of course they will.
Interesting. The thing is, they drunk the Kool-Aid so much they wouldn't. You get, like, these, you know...
Some won't, but many will.
Oh, internally they would.
Many are just going along for the ride. That's one of the things about right-wing politics, particularly sort of populist right-wing politics, reform, etc., is nobody's convincing you to do that. You're not doing that to go along with the crowd to fit in, because it's against the tide.
Yeah, thanks.
So you are making an active, conscious choice to think and behave that way. Whereas on the left, it's very easy just to fall in line and go, yes, I believe the same as they do too. Aren't I kind?
I liked the psychotic smile at the end of that. That was really good. Aren't I kind?
But
if you turned up at my front doorstep and went, aren't I kind?
Vote for me, I'm kind.
Padlock that blimmin' door.
So, but that is exactly what's happening. So I'm always much more trusting of people on the right because I feel it's a much more difficult path, particularly to come out. You know, we forget.
When did you come out?
I came out in about 2016.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I was out well before then.
Yeah,
I was out in like 2007, I think.
2007, I was still pretending to be... I was never ever woke, don't get me wrong, but I was still pretending to be, right, yeah, man, we probably ought to... And borders, are they really a thing, man? Is that just not a social construct? I would have... If someone had said that in front of me, I would have gone, well, that's an interesting point, and, yeah, would you like another IPA? And I would have still been in that mode at that time. I hadn't woken up at all.
Would you like another what?
IPA.
Like
is it a beer or something?
Like a beer with a robot on
you
it.
You always imagine that these people are drinking...
Why do IPAs always have, like, teddy bears with stitched eyes, skulls and robots? That's what I want to know. It's a big question.
Because they're children who want us to think they've grown up.
All right, I'm going to go to a break. Stop nagging me. All right, don't you go anywhere, then. We're back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My phone's going off and I can't stop it, so Chris is scrambling across the... I was like, I can't shut it up, I can't shut it up, and I just threw it like a grenade across the room.
That was brilliant.
But it's always like when you've got advert breaks and things like phones. And
we can have a subscription service for them to watch us during the break.
I can barely breathe, man. My heart is like pounding through my chest at the anxiety of like, it's just like, some rap music was coming out of my phone. Some sort of random gangster rap was coming out of my phone, and I was like, okay, let's turn that off now. Turn off.
Some naughty words I felt as well. There's some naughty words.
There was. I was like, I just thought of all the kittens that Ofcom would be having.
Yeah, exactly.
That was just like, you know, pounding away in the background. Anyway.
Which was one of the lyrics, actually.
Oh, gosh, stop it. Well, it wasn't far off. Was not far off. OK, let us talk now about... Well, let's talk about this sort of... the fact that... Blimmin' socialists, you know, they...
Bloomin' socialists.
Bloomin' socialists. It's sort of like, you know, what is good for the goose is never good for the gander. And the amount of people in the cabinet, oh, we're all working class, we all got dragged up by our bootstraps, you know, my mum couldn't even spell, well, mine had 85,000 children from 10 different fathers, you know, I was so poor that I had to sort of, you know, lick stamps for a living. Then we all find out they've actually made a ton on things like buying their rights to buy council houses, and then they're like, no, going to pull up the drawbridge, no one else is allowed to do that. Bridget Phillipson is one of them. Apparently her family made a 900% profit on the council house, which I assume means 9 times more than what they paid for it, which is a whopper. A whopper. So the Education Secretary's mother bought a 2-bedroom council house in Washington, Tyne-and-Wear, not Washington, D.C., Washington.
Yeah,
Washington. For £9,600, which was a 38% discount on the then market value of just over 15 grand, 15.5 grand. Because that would have been, I'm sure, sort of state funded or, you know, help to get your foot on the ladder, own your own house. Exactly. And then the property was then sold as a private entity for 100 grand. So basically, you've gone from 10 grand to 100 grand, a 900% profit. And then there they go. They pull up the drawbridge after taking advantage of this themselves and suddenly go, no, people can't buy council houses anymore, can't buy social housing. You know, forget it. We've got to give all these houses to, you know, Mohammed and Fatima, who have just come over yesterday. And there is no aspiration. It is, you know, all these people sort of brag about their working class roots, brag about, you know, look at me, you know, I'm from the wrong side of the tracks, look how well I've done, and then do nothing for social mobility. Like there's a number of small private schools that are now actually shutting because of the VAT being levied on those schools, on independent schools. Everything they do seems to be stymieing any idea that you can make it these days from a comprehensive in an inner city into, you know, a high-position job. Because unless you are a minority, you're going to be positively discriminated against. We know that white working-class boys have the worst education records. If you want to get on the housing ladder, you can't because of the mad levels of inward migration and prioritising people who aren't even from this country to get housing. And then obviously not enough housing is being developed to keep up with population growth. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen the United Kingdom in a situation where the classes are as stuck as they're going to be over the next few.
Yeah, and the irony is that it's much thanks to these type of policies that these spiteful class warriors want to introduce. Look, I have no issue with someone buying a social... That was the whole point of Thatcher's plan. People could own homes, social mobility, and it worked for Bridget Phillipson's family. And, you know, she managed to sell her house for essentially 100 grand for buying it for 9, OK? Great. But for the fact that now that Bridget has grown up and become this class warrior and is taking that away from the very people, the communities that benefited from it previously, i.e. her own communities, there's a huge irony in that, which she doesn't seem to see. She, you know, Catherine Birbalsingh, I saw her talking this week, and whenever I hear her talk, she always got some fantastic things to say. And she was very kind and charitable, actually. She said her heart's probably in the right place, but what she doesn't realise is she's harming the very people she thinks she's trying to help. And that's why 0% of teachers spoke favourably of her in a recent poll. Bridget Phillipson's rapidly becoming sort of political kryptonite for Labour, and I don't think it'll be long before she's out of her position. Irrespective of what Keir Starmer said, Kemi Badenoch had every right to criticise her policies, and whilst you can argue till the cows come home whether that language was parliamentary or not, I think she was right.
Oh, do you know what's coming into force today or next week or around about now?
No.
I was reading this morning, I spotted it on the old timelines. This is going to be an absolute disaster. Disaster.
Oh, good.
If you think it's already bad with the levels of uncontrolled immigration, if you think it's already bad with the lack of housing, poor social mobility, leftists doing leftist things, drugs, people trafficking, off the charts, oh, just wait, because we're decriminalising rough sleeping.
I actually heard that on Talk this morning.
Which sounds like a nice thing to do. Oh, well, poor person's homeless, sleeping on the street, they can't help it, it shouldn't be a crime. What it means is you're going to end up with what you have in some big cities in America. They're already emerging in parts of London. I think it's near the Edgware Road. You've got
big tent city over
there.
there.
Exactly. We are now going to end up with these tent cities.
Where the A40 or whatever it is runs across underneath the... They've moved them on occasionally.
But they won't be able to now. Once you've decriminalised rough sleeping, you will not be able to move the people
and
on.
they are dangerous. You do feel intimidated when there are, you know, maybe 30, 40 men. I've never seen any women living in these tents under motorway bridges. And like you say, it's one of these policies, again, that on the surface looks kind. And I'm very kind. And then you just lift up the drain a little bit. You go, whoa. Oh, of course, that's
open that trapdoor.
Yeah, exactly, trapdoor. We can't talk about it. It's not quite Weird Al yet. Let's save it. But look, I just think it's a terrible. I do think that it is probably a very, very bad policy that's only going to lead to humongous homeless communities gathering in certain places.
A lot of people don't understand that there are a number of homeless people who do not want to go to shelters. They want to live on the streets because they have reckless, on-the-edge lifestyles where they don't want to have to go to a place where technically you're not allowed to drink, you're not allowed to smoke, you know, you might get a bed for night. No. And where you've got these tent cities in America, normally they're people who are high on fentanyl, on drugs like spice. That's increasingly happening as well in parts of the United Kingdom now, in old seaside towns. I was reading something about what might have even been Great Yarmouth, one of the seaside towns, which has now become a hotspot for, you know, this sort of new style of drugs that's been, you know, flooding America's streets, largely, by the way, created, imported, smuggled in by entities connected to the Communist Party of China. They know what they're doing. And we will end up with, if we suddenly decriminalise rough sleep, which we are doing now, we are going to end up with, in big cities, in urban areas, there will be people who just choose to live in a tent, getting high, or, you know, the criminal begging gangs as well. And the police are not going to be able to move people on. And they tend to pick locations that become an eyesore, places like, you know, Park Lane, right by Hyde Park, around there. Places where, you know, in a big city, you can understand for some people who live in, you know, on the margins, it's quite desirable to be able to just stick up a tent and sleep under the stars in one of London's leafy suburbs. Yes.
Yeah. Look, I don't think it's thought through. I think they think that this is a wonderful policy. I'm not sure it will... You know, the test will be when it happens and when they're not being moved on. I'm not sure what was driving it, really. I mean, I know there's this sense that because this was pretty much a Victorian policy, and that everything that happened during the Victorian age was dark and dastardly and nasty, because we've seen, you know, Dickens, we've read Dickens and, you know, watched Oliver Twist or whatever. But there was reasons that these people set these things in place, and there's a reason that those laws stayed in place for 100+ years. It's because you have to have a certain amount of control, particularly on those that are most lawless in society. I don't want to... a lot of those people are veterans as well. There are now class systems within the homeless communities. And, when we talk about it and when we think about it, we often think about, asylum seekers and people that have just found their way onto the streets. But it's not necessarily true. There are other types of homelessness as well. Where's their help?
Well, this is what I don't understand. If you remember, we were talking about COVID earlier, so let's get a story arc going on.
Oh, yeah.
Double arc. That's like a McDonald's arches.
Yeah.
Because during COVID, I don't know if you recall this, but hotels were forced to take in the homeless because of public health. Now we have the veterans chucked back on the streets again. Oh, never mind that you fought on the front line, you have PTSD and complex issues. No, you can just rot because we've got to put these migrants in hotels instead. It's an absolute disgrace. It's, it sickens me. It's Armed Forces Day, isn't it? And it sickens me today still the way we treat men and women, particularly men, who served on the front line, who gave up their lives. That was their career, and they're just chucked on the rubbish heap.
Look, I'm someone who's incredibly proud of the armed services, and you feel like somewhere like this, I shouldn't have to say that, of course. The answer to that was, of course you are, Paul. We all are, but that's not necessarily true, and particularly amongst the progressive left-leaning types, they don't care for it. They see our military as part of the problem. I think we should have more things like Armed Service Day. We have it once a year. It moves around the country. It was in Andover yesterday. When I was growing up, the Navy was a big part of my world because I grew up in and around Portsmouth. They used to have something called Navy Days, and you would go into the dockyard and you'd be able to go on ships, and it was a big celebration, a family event, and you got to really engage with the military, the people, and you could see the hierarchy, you could see how proud people were to wear the uniform, and it instilled, I was never interested in joining the armed forces, but I still...
What, a killing machine like you?
Well, this is exactly it, yeah, exactly. You roll me down a hill like a piece of cheese.
Humpty Dumpty, who was a battering ram.
I'll go after the cheese. He was a battering ram, wasn't he?
He was.
There was a lot more to those nursery rhymes than meets the eye.
So much. Well, should we take a break? Because I'm getting nagged again. I know they're very naggy today.
Yeah.
But don't you go anywhere. We're back after this.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royalty from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the royalty from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, hello. Welcome back. Advert breaks, they're just so annoying, aren't they? Always get in the way of a good conversation.
If they didn't happen, we wouldn't get paid, and I like getting paid.
I need it.
Yeah, I do need it.
Girls got to eat.
Yeah,
what can I say? Shall we speak to a caller?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Let's speak to Paul, who's in Devon. Good morning, Paul.
Yes, good morning, Alex. Just some comments as to your conversation that you're having with your guest this morning as to Andy Burnham and certain organisations called Common Purpose, the Fabian Society. And please do not forget that lurking in the background there, you also have another organisation called Demos, who are part of this trio. There's others as well. Excuse me, but you must remember Mr. Andy Burnham, they call him King of the North, soon to be crowned the King of our Parliament. But this man is no more than King of the cover-ups. You only have to look at his performances. The Staffordshire Hospitals, I think, is one. The grooming gangs in Manchester, and the Manchester area or another, this man is up to his neck in it. And if people think, oh, everything's going to change, it's going to change all right, but it will change for the worst. People talk about diversity, equity and inclusion, and diversity is our strength. No, it's not. It's our destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to remember that Common Purpose was brought into being by Tony Blair's government. And we have Andy Burnham now, who's going to be Blair 2.0. But Common Purpose used to work out of an office of the Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott, and it was formed by a woman called Julia Middleton. And they have infiltrated every organisation in this country. And as your guest was talking about his course there, it's all about reframing you. Most people call that brainwashing. But this is what Common Purpose do. And if you look into where they are working, they're all working within civil services of various governments around the world. And if you look at our civil service, it is totally being taken over by Common Purpose, which is basically the shock troops of the Fabian Society.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I was doing digging into this, and it's very difficult to find out much information. But at the very least, what we have is an organisation that purportedly, you know, helps people get to leadership positions, helps to groom the leaders of the future and put them all in touch as a network. But it definitely has a very left-leaning bent, at the very least. But this is the thing, the right wing are terrible about putting their... Well, it's because it's all about freedom. You don't have to try and force your ideology into a workplace or into a newsroom or into a union. So apparently the connection between former Prime Minister Sir John Major and UK leadership organisation Common Purpose is a popular political theory rather than a verified fact. I've done my off-comming, you see?
Okay.
Tugging my forelock.
Is Paul still
right
there?
thing. Yes.
Paul, what was the name of that organisation you mentioned?
Demos.
Demos. That was...
Yes,
fantastic. Sorry, Paul. Yeah, it's Paul here, and Paul's talking to Paul. So it was me talking earlier about being on that course, and it genuinely felt sinister to me. I've always been kind of a contrarian when it comes to these things, so I kept questioning, and I could see that was kind of frowned upon. But Demos, what is that? What do we know about Demos?
Tell
us about Demos. What do you know, Paul?
Well, Demos is a very, very far-left organisation. There used to be guests on talkTV, believe it or not. They used to have a slot during the day, and they are basically, they're another version of the Fabian Society, pushing for a one-world left-wing socialist government. And if you look at what these organisations do, they just sit in the background. We'll never ever see these organisations put up a candidate for election because they would never be voted for. They sit in the background, and if we go back to the 70s when you had programs like Citizen Smith, I don't know if you can remember that. But this was all about the radical movement of Wolfie Smith and his power to the people. Now, where we were all laughing at this Citizen Smith program, there were very real people just like him working away in the background, basically piecemeal and piece by piece moving into the organisations. And I mean, people like Demos and the Fabian Society now control the Labour Party.
The left wing has huge globalised muscularity. They all know each other, they work together, they've got organisations, they're very well funded. I mean, the right wing has think tanks and lobbyists and all the rest of it as well. But it's just not as organised. And the thing that astonishes me is when you look in the West, how much money was spent, trillions, fighting communism. Communism was seen as the root of all evil, not just within Western countries, but abroad. The whole point of the Marshall Programme after the Second World War, America drove so much funding into Europe, was to push back against the spread of communism. And yet in the 21st century, we've now got it in government. We've elected it.
Proudly
and
so.
Did you hear Donald Trump the other day had a bit of a rant about communism?
No, I didn't see that, no.
Yeah, he was talking about the scourge of communism, getting the evil out of America. I was like, get back in there. We need to focus our attention on this stuff because it's toxic, because it is behind so many of the major issues we are facing today, the open borders, the two-tierism, lanyardism, all of the stuff, which is, we can see how much of an impact it's had on corroding our society, our culture, our homogeneity. Is that
It's
the
got
word I
to
was
be a
looking
word.
for? Homogeneity, thank you.
Homogeneity, yes.
Thank you, Matt. Homogeneity.
That was Matt that corrected you.
I know. I don't often get corrected by Matt, but I stand corrected. It's giving me a sassy little head wobble behind the glass there. But Paul, it's a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for calling us and sharing all that information. Let's do some massages. We've still got loads of stories to work through. We're going off on our tangents.
Yeah, we will.
Getting a tan, gent. Right. This new rule for immigration to be sponsored by universities is a joke. This will be exploited by dodgy universities popping up everywhere, and the students just disappear with no accountability. Who is this government kidding? Says Hampshire Mike. It's true, the amount of people coming on their sort of fake student visas, doing fake courses.
Well, it's all part of the same blooming ecosystem.
Yeah.
Blair created, indirectly created millions of new universities because he made it the only aspiration any young person should have was to get a university education. And then he set up student loans, like those two things weren't connected. And now we've got all of these universities and not many people are attending, British people are attending because they're finding out those degrees are no use to them.
And to pop up these universities, they have to fill them with a load of foreign students.
So here comes the scheme to justify it. It's one ecosystem feeding itself.
It is. Always. Right, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back after the break, we are going to be joined by the brilliant Mr. Benjamin Habib, who's going to be talking through all the politics of the day with us. So don't go anywhere, put the kettle on. See you in a sec.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
It's happened before, but it is nonetheless still rather extraordinary that somebody who was only elected or officially sworn in as an MP less than 24 hours ago, in 3 weeks' time, is going to be running the country.
Yes, I think it is rather extraordinary. I think the issue isn't whether someone like that should automatically have to hold a general election. If Andy Burnham wants to introduce major changes to our constitution, he's talked about overhauling the House of Lords. He's also talked about overhauling our electoral system, bringing in some form of PR. I think if he wants to do any of those things, he needs a mandate from the public to do them. To try and do them without calling an election, I think, would be a constitutional outrage.
I've got an interesting tweet. There's always a tweet, Julia.
Yep.
If I can just read this out to you from Andy Burnham 3 years ago. We need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. Well, well, well. That was Andy Burnham actually 4 years ago in 2022. So we're saying stick by your word, be consistent, Andy, and when you're Prime Minister, call a general election.
The battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the Chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people of Makerfield have voted for this guy. Yeah. So he's played a pretty integral role in undermining Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband aren't really speaking. He's going to want a big reward. But, he is, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets.
Lou Hay, I mean, the reality is, look, she served her time. She was cast out of government. The reality is, as you said, she has been central to his campaign. She was central to his campaign in Makerfield. More broadly, she's been central to his campaign to enter Downing Street. He owes her, and she will definitely get a role. I'm not.
What do you say to the people that have texted me in their droves this morning? This is a really corny sentence, but it's true. That lawbreakers can't be lawmakers, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is she's going to get a job. So the answer is yes, they can.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I feel like we really match our music today. We're like, we've got vibes, got summer dress, Hawaiian shirt, yeah. And look at it outside, it's going to break, isn't it?
It is breaking. It's kind of cloudy and cool. I mean, I don't want to talk down the good weather. It was tough at times this week.
I loved it.
But it's great.
I cared for it deeply. I really enjoyed it, every moment of it. Apart from nighttime heat, but that wasn't so bad.
Yes, and the way that the progressives have made air conditioning the new devil is interesting as well. Well, that's not for today, Alex.
Didn't everyone go a bit tonto and start trying to buy, like, air conditioning units from Lidl or something?
Yeah, everyone tried to buy. Probably this week is the time to go, but I shouldn't be encouraging panic buying. But I think air conditioning is the way forward.
But it's really easy to keep your house cool. Just keep the curtains shut. Don't open the windows. And if it is still, do you know what amazes me? People who leave the duvet inside the duvet cover in summer. Do you do that? Because that's just masochistic.
The thing is, that's not just about warmth. It's about comfort as well.
No, I just like the sheet.
Those that feel unloved get their love from a duvet.
I'm unloved and I don't get love from a duvet. I'm just happy with the sheet, me.
There's something about it. I like to, even though it's not on me, I like it to be around me.
You like to spoon your duvet?
There's just a little...
How very cute. You've got one of those weighted blankets as well.
Yeah, special one.
Special blanket. It's got a special blanket! But no, and also, by the way, you want to make at-home air conditioning, you just have to put a sort of something wet, like a wet towel or a wet sheet over a fan.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Or ice bottles, I learnt when I was younger.
Ice bottles?
So a couple of ice bottles in front of a fan on the desk, bottles in front of it, blowing the cool air from the ice.
There you are. Do you know, did you ever do this thing when you were at school where you'd fill up a squash bottle and freeze it?
I did that a lot.
Oh, man, that was the cool thing to do.
I've never seen a kid doing it now.
No, I know.
And you'd always have these, like, slightly different coloured icebergs inside the bottle at the end.
Yeah, you'd end up with, like, melted, just pure tart squash and a sort of lump of ice that it almost breaks your nose when it slides down the bottle.
Everybody had that.
Everyone had a frozzy.
Was it a frozzy?
Well, I've just called it that.
Yeah,
just invented that.
I like that. Look, I think we should bring that sort of stuff back. We could have nostalgia policies for sure.
Oh, well, were we setting up a political party?
Yes.
We could have nostalgia policies. The weird party. Yeah, watch out, bin face.
Yeah.
We're coming at you.
Yeah, because you don't really know what bin face's policies are, do you?
I mean, the right needs another party, doesn't it? We don't have enough.
Let's get involved.
Talking about the right needing another party, see what I'm going to do here. We're going to bring in the chairman of Great British PAC, once the leader of Advance UK, which is no more, Mr. Ben Habib. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
Oh, there was a sort of delay then. There was a suspense whether we were going to get you or not and who would pop up on the screen and where from. Let us talk a couple of things today. Because this is a good one for you, I think.
Can I just say, I agree with the duvet comment. I agree with duvets. I want a duvet in summer, yeah.
You have a duvet in the summer? What is wrong with you people?
Yeah, I do.
You don't know what's good for you. But you like heat, don't you?
Well, it's the comfort, it's the weight. It's the weight of something on your body, you know.
Yes, exactly. Ben and I are two very alpha men, and we're not afraid to say it.
I need the weight of something on my body. I couldn't say this, can I just say? I'd get into some trouble if I said I want to feel the weight of something on top of me. Anyway, before you make me blush, let us talk about this story. There's a growing group of Conservatives who really believe that a strategic pact is needed between Reform UK and the Conservatives in order to prevent another Labour victory. Apparently, there's a growing chorus of Conservative politicians hoping to unite the right in electoral strategy in which Reform or Conservatives would stand aside in certain seats, a non-aggression pact to avoid splitting the right-wing vote. Now, Ben and I were talking about these sorts of things the other day, weren't we, Ben? What do you make of what's going on with the political landscape on the right?
Well, I think before we talk about electoral pact, we've got to have the right singing from the same hymn sheet. Yeah. I don't think the right has really established what it understands to be right-wing. We've got lots of different people espousing different things, and there's got to be a coming together of political philosophy before you can start talking about giving up this seat for that seat. I know we talk also about broad churches. Broad churches is another way of actually saying that we don't have an established political philosophy on the right, that we're grappling around simply trying to get enough support from various factions in the country to create a government. And it's that sort of approach in the past that has so damaged the country. We need a very robust principled approach to governing this country, which is unashamed in its preparedness to be radical and undo the policies that we've been, governed by for the last 30 years.
The thing is, though, Ben, we're talking about there being a broad church. As far as I can tell, right, and this is a comment I was making the other day, back when you had UKIP 1.0 under the leadership of Nigel Farage, so we're talking about a decade, just over a decade ago, you could tell the difference between UKIP, Nigel Farage, and Conservatives and David Cameron. What you couldn't tell the difference between, frankly, was the Conservative Party under Cameron and the Labour Party. And so there was this huge diversity on the right wing of politics. Frankly, now, if you look at the rhetoric, the policies, the ideology, the convictions, the promises, whatever you want to call it, of Kemi Badenoch, of the emergent Rupert Lowe, of Reform UK, they're pretty much identical. They have adopted, essentially, what Nigel Farage's position has been for the longest time. And so they're all now talking about controlling borders, leaving the ECHR, British sovereignty. There isn't as much divergence, frankly, between the offerings on the right now compared to what it was like a decade ago. And so it seems to me that that we're at the point where actually the general public, by and large, has come round to this way of thinking that there should be a clear ability to get a majority to have a proper small c Conservative, truly right-wing government in the United Kingdom. We're apparently now going to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Well, I think we're getting there. You're absolutely right. The Overton window has shifted. And, it took Kemi, for example, a year and a half or perhaps 2 years even. No, a year and a half to come round to agreeing that the ECHR needs to be removed from the body of law in the United Kingdom. But it took her a long time to get there. And we still haven't recognised, for example, that if we wish to control our borders, we're going to have to terminate the withdrawal agreement that we have with the European Union. Now, that's a massive issue because that's going to require the complete rewiring of the constitutional makeup of the United Kingdom. The withdrawal agreement and the trade and cooperation agreement with the EU both have to go if we want back control in the United Kingdom. Not a single political party is actually saying that because they're not prepared to take the risk of the backlash that they're going to get from the left-wing media who say, well, that's going to be a trade war with the EU, et cetera, which it probably will mean a trade war with the EU. And that's where then the right has to then respond and say we can cope with the trade war because we're going to deregulate, we're going to champion businesses, we're going to cut taxes, we're going to cut welfare, we're going to make some very hard decisions that might impact those who wish to live under a dependency culture, but we're going to reinstall aspiration, reinstall the ability to, improve your lot through your own endeavor. These things all come together holistically, and they need to be portrayed and delivered holistically. And we're not there yet. We're not there yet. People on the so-called right still aren't prepared to say some of the difficult things that need to be said.
What do you make of this story, which is that our former colleague in the European Parliament, Rupert Lowe, has vowed to throw everything we have at ending Nigel Farage's Commons career if he ends up facing a by-election in his own constituency of Clacton over this £5 million undeclared pre-general election donation. Look, Ben, let's get real, OK? Let's be candid with the audience and with one another. What do you think is going on here? Because it's quite obvious to me, things that I actually already know, that it's very handy for the Conservative Party to see this new entity come, take the battle directly towards Farage, to pull him down from being able to get a majority so that there can be deals, so that the Conservatives manage to get their hands back on the levers of power. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, surely it's a duck, right?
The Tory party is exceptional in its preparedness to fight and the mechanisms it uses to fight to make sure that it survives somehow. And, what you say politically is absolutely right. Restore and reform going at each other head-on leaves the Tory party sort of in a resurgent position. And so you have to ask yourself, is there something more to this than meets the eye?
Right. And let's talk about is there something more than meets the eye, because at one point Rupert Lowe was invited to come and be the leader of Advance UK when you set up that political party, but he said he didn't want to.
He accepted the position and then changed his mind.
Why do you think he changed his mind?
It was in mid-June last year, 2025, he decided that he wanted to do a movement, not a political party.
Is this sort of mid-June when he was meeting with the Conservatives, do you think?
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but I can say unequivocally that what triggered, I think, Rupert Lowe into launching Restore Britain was Jenrick leaving the Conservatives and joining Reform. When Jenrick, I think it was the 16th of Jan, you'll have to fact check me, 16th of Jan this year, when Jenrick went to Reform, Rupert put out a pretty irritated post on X in which he said, you know, the country needs a proper principled party. I thought one existed in advance. We can debate that separately. But anyway, a proper party, and I'm going to find a solution. You know, Jenrick's done the dirty and gone to Reform. And so there may, and that kind of implies there may have been some kind of sort of relationship between Jenrick and Rupert that was broken when Jenrick went to Reform. I think many people were hoping for a Jenrick-led Tory party because it would be, you know, to the so-called right of where Kemi is. Of course, Jenrick was a Remainer. You know, he was a floppy-haired Remainer until quite recently, believed in lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't know the truth of what's going on, obviously. You know, one can only try and piece these things together.
Indeed.
But it's not helpful having, I completely concede readily that it's not helpful having a plethora of parties on the so-called right. And that's why when Restore Britain started doing well in by-elections and, you know, they won those local elections in the Great Yarmouth area, they did do well in Makerfield, whether we like it or not.
Well, I mean, look, they did OK. I don't think you can sort of, you know, stand and say 7% is some sort of massive victory. They would say
no, but for a brand new
entity.
party, for a brand new entity. Anyway, so at that point, I decided, well, Advance needs to take a step back. There's no point us, you know, muddying the waters further. Let Restore and Reform do what they need to do. And by the way, I think, Alex, that can be a helpful thing.
Well, the difficulty I see with this, OK, Ben, is that when looking back, as you know, I've been in politics for a very long time. For 2 decades, I have been, well, I talk about politics now rather than being in it. But so I understand how it works. I understand the operations, I understand the tactics, I understand the sort of people behind the scenes who nobody at home would have ever heard of, who have their hands on levers and how they tend to operate. But what I would say is this: in 2019, when the Brexit Party stood down all the candidates, something that you and I disapproved of because it was disenfranchising people, it was very easy for people to say, well, I'm not going to vote the Brexit Party, I will vote the Conservative Party instead. Now, the difficulty we have with this entity is its focus is on attacking and destroying Reform, OK? To the extent that if Restore Party can't get a whole slate of candidates in a snap general election, they have poisoned people against voting for anything else on the right. It's a wrecking ball. And that's what is so difficult about this current circumstance. It is not the right trying to sort of, you know, have a different sort of stakehold on the part of the political spectrum. Like I said, a lot of the convictions and ideologies are very, very, very similar. It comes down to numbers and delivery more than anything else. They seem to exist to try and destroy Farage, and that's it. And whether you love him or loathe him, right, I don't think that is politically constructive. I think that is actually doing the bidding of the sort of deep state and the establishment, who would love to see there not being a right-wing government in the United Kingdom.
But Reform's Achilles heel right now is this £5 million that was donated, gifted, whatever, to Farage. And that is going through a Parliamentary Standard Commissioner's assessment. It'll then, if the Commissioner thinks it's serious, and remember, the Commissioner's also adjudicating 17 failures by Farage to declare 380,000 quid, private jet flights and other things. So it's looking quite precarious for Farage from a parliamentary standards perspective. And if that forces a by-election, I'm afraid that is an own goal by Reform. That is something Reform didn't need to do. I don't understand why Farage didn't disclose that 5 million quid.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's such a big figure.
I look at it and I think there's more. I feel like there's something about this story that we're not really discussing because, when things suddenly get leaked to certain journalists, there are operations behind it. It's interesting, Piers Morgan has been on the BBC this morning and he says Nigel Farage is dead in the water and effectively done for after swallowing the controversial £5 million bung from Christopher Harborne. I don't think that is true. I think that if he were to stand, if he was forced into a by-election in Clacton, I think that he would potentially look like a martyr. I think it would be labelled as lawfare, and I think he would win in Clacton. I mean, look, this is what apparently a Westminster source has suggested neither the Labour Party nor the Tories actually want to push for a sanction requiring a by-election, amid fears that Farage will pose as a victim of the establishment and return with an increased majority. I can see what's being...
what happens.
Let's see what happens. It might not end up going to, the watchdog might determine that nothing to see here. It's a difficult... There are certain rules about, donations within 12 months before coming to Parliament.
Sadly, Alex, this is all a distraction from the desperate needs of the country. We need to be deciding on policy, nostalgic policy or whatever it is you were discussing. I'm on for nostalgic policies, by the way. But, we need to be... what the right needs to be doing is having a debate on policy, getting the best people into politics, putting a friendly arm...
Oh, we've lost him.
And then delivering this country out of the peril in which it now finds itself.
Look, I agree with you. I'm a
Sorry, I was just saying, and then delivering the country out of the peril. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a seasoned, canny political operator. I can see what's going on.
That's what we've got to do. We've got to fight.
Yeah, we've got to. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And at the moment, just as we're in a position where the right are dominating the narrative, the right are essentially looking increasingly like they're going to form the next government, oh, look, all these sudden things emerge as distractions and lawfare and rival parties, and how very convenient. Let's talk now about Kemi Badenoch, who is definitely having a bit of an insurgency, or resurgence, if there was a surge in the first place that then diminished. I think she benefits a lot from being the official opposition in things like PMQs, but it's like the Conservative press machine have cranked up a gear somewhat. Every single day now, she's in the papers, making announcements, putting out apology pledges, sassy comments, sound bites, viral clips. The latest policy that she's put out is that she would slash benefits to give 50,000 armed forces reservists a tax cut worth up to £2,000. I mean, these are solid policies. Everyone wants to see benefits slashed. Again, this will be echoed across all the right-wing parties. I would say that we need...
It's quite a clever policy. It's quite a clever policy, that. Cut benefits, which is a good signal, and it's something that we need to do right across the board. And we've got to be prepared to swallow that bitter pill and swallow it hard. And at the same time, build a military. Build the backbone of a military. It's a good policy.
Is the way forward to do this, giving defence an actual £10 billion increase that it desperately needs, increasing the share of the GDP, or is it about just creating reservists? I mean, if you look at this, 50,000 reservists, our armed forces have been cut by about that much since the Falklands conflict. Surely what we need to do, and it's sort of interconnected, that we want to get people off welfare and into the armed forces, those post-industrial towns.
I mean, we spend more on our national interest bill. We spend nearly twice as much on our interest bill than we do on the defence of our country. We've got to seriously increase our defence spending. We've also got to rewire our approach to military, how we deal with the military. We've got to get rid of all these things that are defeating the military's ability to be the military. For example, recruiting fighter pilots based on the colour of their skin, or GCHQ wishing to get ethnic minorities to do their, sensitive, important operations. We've got to get the armed forces actually understanding that we need the best people in our planes, the best people on our ships, the best people in our tanks. We need lots of tanks, and we need to be prepared to blooming use them against the enemy ruthlessly without then attacking our veterans and those who go and do the job that needs to be done to defend this country, including, if I may say so, the failure of recognising that the Navy needs to engage in the Channel and prevent those dinghies from coming to the United Kingdom. This is all part of our national security architecture. And so whilst we need to spend more, we also need to understand what we do once we spent it.
No, I totally agree. We've got to spend it in the right places, spend more, and we've got to get the woke mind virus off the front line. That is the worst possible thing to be infiltrating your troops with. Ben, thank you ever so much. It's always great catching up. Ben Habib there. I mean, let's go back to what we're talking about, these sort of blimmin' splits on the right. It frustrates me so much. I am so against this politicking. You know, real politic. I'm so against the games, the factions. Gotta be us. Won't do a deal with this. Gotta make a pact. Gotta, you know, at least actually back in the day when we had a binary system, although they ended up being, you know, just fighting over the centre, there was a sort of choice between it was either them or us. Now it's just, I hate the fact that politicians and, you know, all these sort of men in suits in the corridors of power care more about their West Wing games than they actually do delivering for the country. And I'm done with it. I'm done with it.
We see these factions, particularly within the Labour Party, but they're all under one umbrella. So you are voting for the Labour Party, you're voting for left-wing politics. We see a little bit of this in the Lib Dems, but my point is that on the right, you end up with these factions in separate groups. Now, I think Makerfield all but destroyed Restore. I think that what we saw as a result of Makerfield is the hype didn't play out in the numbers, and that actually people were much more concerned by the bigger picture. Because anecdotally, I kept hearing that Reform voters were voting for Labour to get rid of Keir Starmer, which tells you that they were much more interested in that bigger picture than they were of any of the infighting whatsoever.
I mean, look, it has been an entity that's existed on social media. That's primarily what it is. That's its function. Its function, like I said, is to basically be an anti-Farage movement. And it's interesting now, it seems to be cracking because, you know, what's written on X doesn't come out of Rupert's mouth. What he says in interviews isn't necessarily shared by the guys who, in theory, are, you know, running his social media accounts. And there's not really any substance to it. It is viral. It's viral, algorithm-driven posts on social media and little more. And it's interesting now that they're being asked to be a political party, how they don't seem to understand how to do it.
You can have factions within the political movement, and you can have people that are within Reform that aren't 100% behind Nigel Farage and want to hold his feet to the fire because they have a type of politics they want Nigel Farage to deliver. What you, unfortunately, and there's some very clever brinksmanship and gamesmanship going on here, what is very difficult to do is break out into silos and try and deliver the same policy. Because let's face it, everybody's trying to deliver largely the same policy. 80% is the same policy.
Yeah, exactly.
So it feels like we need to move on, but...
Yeah. Oh, no, they're going to nag me in a minute. You know it. They're not even speaking in my ear. They're just giving me dirty looks. Blimmin' heck. Don't look at Matt's face. That's... OK. We're going to take a break now. I'm going to hide under the desk. See you in a moment.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
All right. It's okay. Matt didn't come in and start biffing us.
Biffing?
Yeah, we didn't get biffed by Matt. He's a frightening young man.
He is. It's his nickname.
Yeah, he's got, like, yeah...
Which we shall never, ever
kill.
say.
So to speak, that's not quite the right... Anyway. Shall we do some messages and then take a call?
Yes,
good old Joanna in Salisbury. It says, hi, Alex and Paul. Illegal migration across the Channel is almost an agreement with France and the EU to take our quota. People don't realise if we rejoin the EU, the quota is higher than we're trying to stop. It's true, actually. It is basically an informal arrangement because we weren't part of their migrant sharing scheme. It's like, well, you know, you're going to have to have them anyway.
Rejoining the EU would be absolutely bonkers, right? Even if, I mean, you have to be entirely zealoted in order to think that's a good idea. Even if you were someone who voted Remain and now sort of like it's done and dusted, let's forget about it, you can see that going back, what's the advantage? There's no economic advantage. We're better off. We can still trade with the EU once they get over this spitefulness. And by the way, that's all it's been since then.
Yeah.
Complete and utter spitefulness in order to punish us for having the audacity to leave. Our economics, it's negligible whether our economic situation is anything to do with the EU, particularly when people, the noise around COVID, for instance, we have no idea what was Brexit and what wasn't. The large proportion of that will be COVID, and it's not as if, OK, you can say, well, that's all nonsense, Paul, that's all nonsense. Show me, as the EU, as a collective, their economy's on its knees.
They're rubbish. They're stagnating far more quickly than we are. This is a good one. How is Burnham being touted as such a good-looking bloke?
Well?
A woman pointed out to me that he doesn't appear to have a top lip. Now I can't unsee it. He hasn't got a top lip.
That's a big thing, is it, amongst the lady fraternity?
My mate Belinda was pointing this out to me as well, but I hadn't noticed he hadn't had a top lip.
He seems like an attractive guy.
He's comely looking, isn't he? Like, he's not horrible. He sort of looks pleasant. He looks... you know, he looks like a PE teacher to me.
You know, smashing. Good on you, Andy. But that's not really what we need. I don't care.
Yeah, where are the hotties in charge? That's what I need in the Prime Minister.
We just need somebody with the right type of politics. And again, and Ben did talk about this, or not quite directly, but indirectly, it's about setting out a vision. You have a vision, you work back from your vision, and then you work towards your vision, right? You set everything up, your whole system around delivering that vision. Now, if we can just get the right to coalesce around the right to coalesce around one idea, one vision on the right, then we can deliver it. And it's only ever going to be delivered through one party, or maybe two, and it's not going to be three. Yeah. And those parties are likely to be Reform and Tories. Simple as that. I mean, well, you might hate it, but that's that. We just need to coalesce around one idea.
Hi, Alex and Paul. You both look so summery.
Yay, it's summer.
Says Sharon. If Burnham proves he is useless and hasn't got a plan, do you think he would do the honourable thing and call for a general election? Well, if he proves to be useless and without a plan, he's not going to then call a general election. No. He's going to want to look useful and planned up. I was discussing this with Matt Ford down in Makeup. You know Matt?
I do, but I've never... I know of him, and we've got mutual friends, but I have never met Matt. And that's... You often say you see him down there.
Well, it started off last week. That's our thing now. We meet up in Makeup. You should come.
So I'd like to meet Matt.
9 o'clock
nice
Makeup.
We do have one mutual friend in a guy called Paul McCaffrey that is another stand-up comedian.
I mean, because he was a Labour Party advisor, so we were talking about this and whether or not it would be sensible for Burnham to run. And I think it just depends on how big a Burnham bounce is, how polling looks when he gets into power. I think he should, and not just... I think strategically it would be a sensible thing to do. Because then you say you've got the mandate, that gives you then 5 years in power if you manage to win, rather than, you know, just the sort of 2 or whatever he's left of 2 or 3. Even if it's a smaller majority, it's actually easier to control backbenchers when you actually have a tighter ship. And then you can turn around and say, this is my agenda, this is what I'm going to do. I think the Labour Party are probably in a position to be better prepared than the other parties. They don't have to come up with a whole new selection of candidates. They can run the candidates they ran in the last election, you would think. Whereas Reform, I think, actually has to, because it's a snap election, Sunak called it quickly last time, to try and wrong-foot Reform. And I think they would face the biggest uphill struggle in terms of getting all the candidates, getting a fully fledged manifesto, whereas, you know, Burnham can just go down LSE, can't he? Take it off the Fabian Party bookshelf. I think, his polling is never going to be as high as when he initially has that honeymoon period. That will be the peak.
Of course, and we're in that. I think we're in that peak now, because maybe it will last a few weeks.
Prime Minister.
But this is it, isn't it? But we are all talking about if he is. There is this coronation going on, and we should be suspicious, by the way, of how quickly they've just dumped Keir Starmer, and that's gone, and now it's Andy Burnham.
Someone wrote on X, and I thought this was quite interesting. It's like, who did all of this? The British people didn't decide. Who is it that suddenly decided, right, Andy Burnham needs to be the Prime Minister, so this one's going to stand down, he will win the by-election, there won't be a leadership contest? It does look like a coup. It looks like it's been determined by someone. Starmer's not doing the agenda properly. We're going to have to replace him, because it wasn't us. It wasn't the British people.
I don't know who the brains is. Josh Simmons was a big part of it, because he's the one who caused a whole bunch of trouble in the first place and then stepped down to land Andy Burnham to take his Makerfield seat. And so he has a part to play. I wouldn't give him the kudos of saying he's some sort of Machiavellian character. I don't think he is. I don't know enough to say he definitely is not. But there is definitely things going on behind the scene. And we were told to buy into Starmerism like it was the new thing and the adults were back in the room. It's less than 2 years and they're like, yeah, no, that was wrong, and now we're going to go to Andy and that's right. They don't know. They've got no judgment. And we're all expected just to sit there and let them play out their little experiment with our country.
Yeah, but without our consent.
With 30% of the vote.
Yeah, it's gross. Hate it. Right, should we take a
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's have a cooler.
I've got to do some more press-ups, actually. So,
yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Get into your plank. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to be discussing Armed Forces Day. We're going to celebrate all of those who have sacrificed so much in service to this country. Don't go anywhere.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and welcome back to the show. Now, there are plenty of people who work in the military who are unsung heroes. We think of people in the Royal Navy as sailors and pilots in the RAF, soldiers in the army. But what about people who do logistics? What about people who are chaplains in the armed forces? What about people who are chefs? A great many of those doing those particular jobs, as well as the frontline duties as well, tend to be reservists. It's something that I'm beginning to learn about as someone who's going through the applications myself to be a reservist at some point. Let's speak now to a specialist in the Royal Navy Reserves, a specialist actually in maritime trade operations, Lieutenant Commander Paul Ladislau. Paul, great to have you on the programme today. Talk to me, because Kemi Badenoch is saying that, you know, she wants to pump tax cuts towards reservists. Tell me about life as a reservist, what it's like, and why this is such an important feature in our armed forces.
OK, well, thank you very much for having me on the programme, Alex. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I've been a reservist for coming up to 30 years now. And in my day job, I'm a chemical engineer. Within the reserves, I'm a maritime trade specialist, and I do a lot of work within NATO. And the reason what we do is important is when you look at how much trade comes in by sea to the UK, it's over 90%. We provide the link between the Royal Navy and the maritime community, whether it's the ships, the seafarers themselves, and anything else associated with trade coming in and out. And it's a specialist role that only naval reservists do within the UK and within NATO. And we work almost very, very closely with the Royal Navy in supporting them and the nation's defence.
In what way? So what does this actually involve? We know how important maritime routes are when it comes to geopolitics. We can see that with what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. So tell me, when you go in and do your work as a reservist, the sort of thing you're doing, and how much time does it take?
It depends. The great thing about being a reservist nowadays is there's a lot of flexibility in how much time you do or you don't commit. Last year I did about 30 to 40 days as a reservist. Some years you could do about 24 as a minimum commitment. And what is really, really reassuring and great nowadays is the way that defence is really bringing in the reserves to be a part of the whole force and giving us greater opportunities to be fully integrated within the reserves. There are opportunities as well to do full-time service. So if you find that you want to take a break from your full-time job and go off and spend a lot more time with the military, you can apply for a full-time service contract. Or there are mobilization opportunities going. Sometimes you have to go. So about 4 years ago, I spent 6 weeks on HMS Prince of Wales up in the high north, doing some work up there. We've got people out in the Gulf, people mobilized out in Gibraltar, in the Falklands. So it's very much wherever the Navy goes or wherever defence go, we now go.
And talk to me about the sort of roles, because there might be people listening thinking, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. You know, 24 days a year, that's basically giving up one weekend a month. And as I was saying, there's plenty of roles there that don't necessarily involve firing guns or, you know, doing what, you know, the more violent stuff. There are jobs in intelligence, there are jobs in camaraderie, there are jobs in logistics. Tell us about the sort of things that people might want to look into.
So within the reserves or within defence, we're now fully integrated within the Navy, and we take all sorts of individuals coming through. There's two main types of reservists nowadays. You've got the part-time volunteer reservists like myself. So I've joined in the Navy with no previous regular service experience. And you've got individuals who join the Navy with previous experience. As a part-time volunteer reservist like myself, there's a wide range of roles available, and they're grouped into two main classes. You've got the generalists. So these are the seamen specialists, the logisticians, people who can do roles that are very much akin to what the regular service do. And as you can see in some of the pictures there on some of the mine hunters and the smaller ships, they'd be staffing the smaller ships on the upper deck, providing ships protection teams, providing the logistics. Then we've got some of the specialist roles. We've got chefs, chaplains. We've also got intelligence specialists, folk like myself who were trained in some of the NATO procedures in maritime trade and cooperating and providing guidance for merchant shipping. So it's quite a wide range of skills. One of the projects that I'm actually working on, it's called the Pan Defence Skills Framework for the Navy. And that's a massive project for defence. What they're doing is they're taking across all the skills that anyone in defence or the civil service in the military branch need to use, and putting that into a big database or into a system so that we can transform the Navy into a skills-based organisation. And we can take either reservists or people from the regular service, and it's all about getting the right person for the right job with the right skill sets at the right time, which sounds a bit of a cliche, but it is very much all about managing the talent and the personnel within Navy. And as a reservist, I'm really pleased to be part of that.
And given that you've been doing it for 30 years, one assumes, therefore, you thoroughly enjoy it and find it very rewarding.
Oh, yeah, I've had a brilliant time. And firstly, congratulations and well done for applying to go for it. I'd thoroughly recommend it to anyone who's interested in joining. Lots of opportunities, given the way the world's going. It's becoming a lot more unsettled, so there's going to be a greater call for reservists to come and support the military. And I've been all over. The furthest I've been is Chile for a couple of weeks. I've been out there on exercise working with our Chilean colleagues. I've been out to the Gulf a few times, over to Canada, the United States. And nowadays we're doing a lot of work within NATO. So I spent 3 weeks working with our Norwegian friends in Bergen and Stavanger this year. And they're brilliant to work with. So one of the things I really enjoy is building links with individuals across NATO and across the world. So I've got friends in Chile, the States, and across NATO who, when you're chucked together into quite an intense exercise or an operation for a few weeks, no matter where you come, you build really, really good links and relationships.
Well, there you go. I think you've done a very good advert for the job there, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your service and giving up your spare time as a reservist in the Royal Navy. It's a long process, actually. It's a very stringent process. I was applying in intelligence and blimmin' heck.
Yeah,
it's a long older application.
The first part of my career was working in defence. So, as I say, I was born in Portsmouth, worked in and around Portsmouth in defence, worked for a lot of ex-Navy, and most of those ex-Navy were also reservists as well in their retirement, and they loved it. I mean, once they'd spent their career doing it, I got to learn a lot about it myself. Like I say, I don't know, it's because I've been in and around it my whole life. I've never had the inclination to do so myself, but Paul done a fantastic job then of marketing the position of a reservist, and you can do a million different things as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. People sort of think, oh, it's just fighting. No, there's a lot you can do.
And travel the world still.
Yeah.
Which Paul said, went to Chile, Canada, United States.
Living your best life,
the
aren't you?
Golf.
Get to wear a uniform.
The uniform always looks great, doesn't it?
Amazing.
It does look great.
Yeah,
You look good in that.
I applied. Well, thank you. I applied for RAF because I just want to be close to aeroplanes. I love planes.
That's
What
fantastic.
can I say? Here we go. We've got a message, by the way, from our favourite.
Claire?
Yes. Alex and Paul, please shout out to my boy Nathan. Hi, Nathan! We waved him off on the train to HMS Caledonian in Scotland this morning. He's there for 4 days for his Navy fitness medical assessment. Super proud of him. Good luck, Nathan.
Yes.
They don't mess about when it comes to the sort of medical assessment. I've got to do mine, then they're going to find out I've got a bionic leg.
I've seen Claire. She doesn't look old enough to have a grown-up son.
Have you seen Claire?
Yeah.
You were keeping that quiet. When did you see Claire?
No, well, I can't say exactly. She contacted me via social media.
What's it going on like that, is it?
But no, just nothing happened. No, Claire's married. I don't know. Nothing happened. Claire just said hi. She said, she loves us too, and we were just talking about.
Are we seeing, love in real time on Talk?
There's no love in real time.
There's no love in real time.
I got my quilt.
Got your special blankets. Morning, Alex and Paul. I love you guys, but please stop giving the Labour Party ideas about how they would potentially win a snap election. Let them try and figure it out for themselves for a change. Look, as much as I can't stick them, they will have very clever strategists. They know what they are doing. Hi, Alex. If Burnham is so great, how come they didn't vote him in one of the 3 times he tried to become leader? Reason he is being called up is he is the only one left.
So true.
He's
huge
been
dearth,
picked
isn't there?
as the puppet, really, isn't it?
I think so. He lost to Ed Miliband in 2010, and then he lost to Jeremy Corbyn. If on your CV is 2 losses, and 1 is to Miliband and 1 is to Corbyn, then I think you're probably in the wrong line of work.
I think you probably are. A deal with another party 3 years before an election shows nothing but weakness. If the election doesn't go your way, then you make the deals if needed. I think it's better to have post-election pacts. But, strategically, it's very difficult under first past the post. I just wish there weren't pacts, actually. It's just
a lot of people are sort of... It's a human nature thing, isn't it? Oh, we must. So try and stop myself from doing that. And all the big players are cautious as well. I've heard Michael Gove saying... Well, I actually heard Michael Gove say today that he thought the Tories would have a resurgence now and they'd be ahead in the polls at some point. But he is a Tory. He is a Tory peer, and it's kind of,
Kemi is his pick.
Yeah, and Kemi is his pick. And one of the reasons he's... No, I'm thinking of someone. I'm thinking of Toby. Michael Gove wasn't picked... Michael Gove wasn't picked for the Lords by Kemi, was she? I think that Toby Young he was. Anyway, they're not the same people. Michael Gove and Toby Young are very different people.
Well, I don't even know what you're talking about anymore. You've just gone like, what are you on about?
So occasionally, and you'll notice this once.
I was focusing then, my sort of brow crease, because I'm like, you're just saying names at me. Gove, Toby, he's not that, this, what?
Can you imagine the dialogue going on in my head?
Well, what are you even talking about?
So, I was thinking, oh yeah, because Kemi chose Gove into the Lords.
Oh my goodness, find the English language, you're on the radio.
Yeah, good point. So it was Toby Young that was put into the Lords by Kemi Badenoch, not Michael Gove.
There's been a bit of an announcement on X in recent moments from Zia Yusuf, who is Shadow Home Secretary, or well, that's the portfolio they've given him, so to speak. He says that reform will make aiding and abetting illegal entry into the UK a criminal offence regardless of intent. He says they will call it the Polanski law. It's not just people smugglers facilitating illegal entry into Britain. Charities in the UK, such as Care for Calais, brazenly provide services for people breaking immigration law. Zach Polanski visited charities in Calais last year and called for more illegal small boat migrants to be allowed into the UK. We will close this loophole in the current law by making it a strict liability offence. Intent will not need to be proven for people to perform any act that assists or encourages illegal entry, punishable by up to 2 years in jail. This will stop the Labour, Tory and Green Party endorsed charity industrial complex from facilitating large-scale illegal entry under the false premise of charitable action. It's interesting, actually. It's a very interesting policy, that, because what is astonishing is it was discovered when you had all the boats coming from places like Tunisia to Lampedusa to Italy. There were boats going out, I think actually going into Greece. There were boats going out, picking people up, there were charity boats picking people up in the middle of the Mediterranean to bring them to the EU, not the border force like we do. And it turned out that these were charities which were getting direct funding from the German government.
Incredible.
Germany's played funny games with all this. It's all started with Merkel doing the whole refugees
Angela Merkel
welcome.
is the sort of empress of this problem,
She
really.
loves open borders. She should be trying
and they're sending them back now. You know, even though this is, you know, the latest German government is fairly disastrous already, they're starting to send them back. Look, I love the fact they're going to call it the Polanski law. They're essentially saying that what Zach Polanski did was illegal. I wouldn't want to shut people like Zach Polanski down, because one of the reasons I believe in free speech, isn't it fantastic to hear what Zach Polanski has to say? The demise, the fall and demise.
Here's another one, yeah, they all fawned over him. Isn't he progressive? Isn't he fun? Oh, no, he's a nutter.
But because they let him speak.
Yeah.
He was on everything, wasn't he? And then everyone just collectively went, no, that's mad.
That's mad.
That's absolutely mad.
Shall we have a caller?
Yes.
Yay, let's speak to Saeed, who's in London. Good morning, Saeed.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Hello, Saeed.
Yeah, hi. I was sort of obviously listening to your discussion around fragmentation of the right-wing vote. And I think that has obviously something which the left has historically been a victim of, between Labour and Lib Dems, and now the Greens are in there. And I think it's all due to our sort of first-past-the-post electoral system, which rewards the winner, even though that the win might be very narrow. So Starmer didn't win the 2024 elections. The Tories lost.
Yes.
And the Tories lost because their vote got fragmented with reform. And I think the only way around it is some sort of proportional representation, which allows people's vote to be still counted and tallied up, rather than completely lost to oblivion.
It's interesting. You know, you make a very good point. What we actually saw in Makerfield, though, was tactical voting from the left, and they actually are good at this. They will actually, voters themselves will form electoral pacts to stop reform. We saw that very much in Makerfield, where the Lib Dems and the Greens didn't really campaign it. Nobody voted for them. The whole vote went to Burnham. But let's talk about the idea of proportional representation, because for a long time, Farage would have been one of the principal people banging the drum for this when he was UKIP, and it would have helped him enormously. Now, probably less keen on it. The Lib Dems are pushing for it, obviously.
No, but the Lib Dems are actually, for the first time, their MPs are roughly in line with their vote share. So I don't know how long they'll...
Actually, no, the first past the post delivered well for them. They've actually got more MPs than their vote share. Essentially.
But I think look, it is a fairer system, and I think we can still keep a semblance of maybe reduce the 650 MPs to 325 directly elected, and the remaining as some sort of a top-up, similar to what we have in the London GLA election.
The sort of alternative vote. Let's talk about this, Paul, because I find we have now got a multi-party system. We no longer live in a binary political era. And other countries where they have a multi-party system have proportional representation. But it does mean that you are forever stuck with coalition forming. Every single election, it tends to end up being coalition forming. You can have stagnated talks that rarely face resolution. There was no government in the Netherlands for about 6 months a couple of years ago because of this. But what we have got, because I think there are sort of benefits and disbenefits to this. I like it in terms of every vote counts. I like it because you do end up with a more interesting, diverse range of politics rather than just all centrist politics coalescing around two parties who just pass the ball between them like a football match. But the disbenefits are that, yes, you end up with always having coalitions and pacts and people not agreeing. So even though you think you're getting what you voted for, I voted, you know, whoever, Count Binface, and so Count Binface got 10% of the vote and he's got 10 MPs or whatever. The problem then is nobody wants to work with Count Binface, so I didn't get what I wanted after all. But what I'd say we've had this a long time anyway with the bipartisan system. And I say that because when you look at the factions in the Conservative Party and the infighting, they couldn't do a deal amongst themselves.
No, it's a problem.
And weirdly, the last time we had a government that actually got things done quite rapidly and expediently was the Lib Dem Tory coalition, because they were forced to have to make decisions rather than just fight.
Yeah, thanks, Aid. It's a very intelligent talking point, actually, and I think it's something that needs to be discussed more. And of course, Andy Burnham wants PR more than anyone. I don't think that he would be able to make that a policy for Labour. I think, given how weak their landslide was, that a lot of those MPs aren't going to want PR, because PR means they're very much likely to be out of a job. Whereas once you're in first past the post, actually gives you a much greater chance of staying in power because it works in your favour. But the argument's always going to be now, where we've split out into multi-party systems, into a multi-party system, people need to be represented. So
just look at it, they'll go mad behind that glass. They're doing this, they're like pretending to crack pencils and pens at me. Break, OK.
Oh, it's a break. Yeah, but Saeed's made a really clever point.
Saeed made a very clever point. We wanted to discuss it. We'll come back to it after the break. OK, then.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello. Right, here we go. Let's do some messages, shall we? Johnny from Carlisle says, I spent 10 years with the Army Reserve and it was the best thing I ever did. I hadn't been a ball player and have since been to France, Italy, Australia, Cyprus and served on 2 operational tours in Afghanistan. It gave me life skills and really boosted my confidence. Highly recommended to everyone.
Fantastic.
Alex, you'll be a credit to the reserves. I just got to pull my finger out and go. I've sort of let the application drop a bit. I've been a bit busy lately. Other things have been going on, but I need to pull my finger out and get back on it. Hello, Alex. It's not all a bed of roses in the armed forces. I did lengthy service and don't really look back on it with any sense of nostalgia, says Barry in Derbyshire.
Yeah, there's plenty of people like that, and it's worth mentioning because it's not for everybody, but what we really do need is a society that wants to a large enough proportion of our society that wants to help defend our aisles.
So I'm attracted to it for the social aspect, if I'm honest. No, no, but I am.
Join the beer corp.
Yeah, I just, running around in fields in camo at a weekend. I think that sounds great fun.
Yeah. It sounds
Learning
great,
to shoot a gun. Yeah. I mean, for me, it is about, because I live in a world, where I work in broadcasting, right-wing broadcasting, and, sort of was once in politics. My community is very insular. We all know the same people. We all have the same conversations. Day in, day out, it's politics, it's strategy, it's plots, it's policy, it's, And I quite like the idea of having a world outside of that, a different ecosystem, and something which introduces me to people from all walks of life who might not give a hoot about politics, but, quite happily want to go smash some mad people up in the Middle East.
So my own thing about this is I've got Colin, and Colin is someone I play golf with, and even though he's known me a couple of years, he still doesn't understand what I do, doesn't really care what I do, has no interest in politics. He likes to talk about what's in the middle aisle at Lidl, and I love it, because even the other day we were playing golf together, and one of the guys who actually owned the course said, "Oh, Paul, I saw you on the TV the other night," and Colin's looking at me as if say, what do you do on the telly? And it's like, well, we've known each other 2 years, Cole. You know things that. But he has zero interest in this aspect of my life. We just met playing golf, and it's really nice to have that outlet, because people want to talk to you.
It is. So now, in that, I sort of live out in the sticks now, and it's sort of where I lived in London, I sort of socialised with everybody I worked with as well. Now I live in the sticks, I'm meeting a sort of plethora of interesting characters. I was talking to someone the other day about breeding polo ponies, and it was just like, I didn't know that apparently with race horses, it's very difficult to breed them. With a polo pony, you can knock them up, take out the embryo, stick it in another horse, carry on playing the polo pony. And I had this long conversation about...
Wow, I didn't know any of this.
Horse embryos. And then I said, because he's, this guy knows I sort of do this job, and I was like, yeah, so, want to talk about what I do? He's like, nah, it's politics.
Yeah, but I love that. Don't you? Everyone needs a Colin. Everyone needs a Colin.
Everyone needs a person that they can talk to about horse fertilisation in the middle of Lidl, basically.
Exactly, that's all you need.
Maybe they should start offering horse fertilisation in the middle of Lidl in some of the rural
I also think psychologically it's a bad idea to identify yourself in a certain way or become completely identified as just Alex Phillips who talks on the radio, who talks on the telly. Because, it's when you do this job and we get recognition, it's wonderful, right? Let's not forget that it's not wonderful. I've had all sorts of jobs, and this is by far and away my favourite job.
It's a fun job. It's a fun
job.
Yeah.
Far and away my favourite job.
Yeah.
But you can get carried away sometimes, and if you let it take over you, it will. So it's always good to have that grounding.
It's always good to meet people who aren't in your normal ecosystem.
Exactly.
I definitely think that. Add a bit of spice to life. So there you go. That's what I meant when I said, being a reservist, it is service, but it's also the camaraderie and community, and well, men in uniform as well. Let's be fair. Right, OK, we're taking a short break now, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're joined by the brilliant, inimitable Adam Brooks, the most infamous pub landlord of them all, to talk about, well, whatever we're going to talk about. So put the kettle on, and we'll see you just after this short commercial break.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
It's happened before, but it is nonetheless still rather extraordinary that somebody who was only elected or officially sworn in as an MP less than 24 hours ago, in 3 weeks' time, is going to be running the country.
Yes, I think it is rather extraordinary. I think the issue isn't whether someone like that should automatically have to hold a general election. If Andy Burnham wants to introduce major changes to our constitution, he's talked about overhauling the House of Lords. He's also talked about overhauling our electoral system, bringing in some form of PR. I think if he wants to do any of those things, he needs a mandate from the public to do them. To try and do them without calling an election, I think, would be a constitutional outrage.
I've got an interesting tweet. There's always a tweet, Julia.
Yep.
If I can just read this out to you from Andy Burnham 3 years ago. We need to start demanding a general election at the end of this Tory leadership election. Well, well, well. That was Andy Burnham actually 4 years ago in 2022. So we're saying stick by your word, be consistent, Andy, and when you're Prime Minister, call a general election.
The battle is really on, though, for number 11. Who's going to be the Chancellor? Ed Miliband, don't forget, has played an integral key role in this coup, and it is a coup because no one apart from 25,000 good people at Makerfield have voted for this guy. Yeah. So he's played a pretty integral role in undermining Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband aren't really speaking. He can want a big reward. But, he is, probably the most left-wing person in the government, and he will spook the markets.
Lou Hay, I mean, the reality is, look, she served her time. She was cast out of government. The reality is, as you said, she has been central to his campaign. She was central to his campaign in Makerfield. More broadly, she's been central to his campaign to enter Downing Street. He owes her, and she will definitely get a role. I'm not.
What do you say to the people that have texted me in their droves this morning? This is a really a corny sentence, but it's true. That lawbreakers can't be lawmakers, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, but the reality is she's going to get a job. So the answer is yes, they can.
Across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show. 2 hours have gone.
2 hours have gone.
Done.
So much to come, though. I mean, you've got my body double coming up, Adam Brooks.
Yeah, exactly.
He's pretty much modelled himself on me, actually.
I think he has.
He doesn't like to talk about it. He probably won't even mention it when he comes on.
No. Well, we will ask him, because I think he definitely studied your aesthetic.
He
keenly.
has. He has.
I've got a little story for you here.
Right.
And I've also got some good messages. I like that. Sean, I'm not reading that out.
It's naughty.
Well, it's, talking about Commando. You can imagine.
No, yeah.
Yeah, you can imagine. And someone said, ooh, Pale Pennies, how terribly poosh. No, not really. You get posh people, but you get unposh people as well in the world.
People forget that there's a lot of industry under these posh sports.
There's a lot of industry in the world. Right, this is a story here. Make it make sense. So, apparently, Starmer is eyeing up the position of being NATO Secretary-General when that comes up again.
Quelle surprise.
Mark Rutte is a former Dutch PM, is currently the NATO Sec-Gen. And I think making a good fist of it, if I'm honest. He's the one who sent that text message, Trump going like, Daddy. That was weird. But Trump likes him, and, I don't mind a bit of Mark Rutte. I've always quite liked a bit of Mark Rutte. The Dutch tend to be fairly sound. But Starmer wanting to be NATO Secretary-General, he does like going on the geopolitical trips and the summits and this, that and the other. But this is the man who levelled an actual witch hunt against armed forces.
Indisputable, by the way. No nuance to it.
No.
Went for it, alongside his mate, Hermer, who, by the way, I'm sure will go with him wherever he goes.
Yeah, that bit I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I can't wait. He has to go at some point. I mean, there are... Well, let's get on to that in a minute, but there are people that have to go that are associated to Starmer. But the idea that Starmer's going to become the head of NATO or...
Well, it's a sort of mad thing that probably could come to pass.
Almost certainly. Almost certainly. Actually, Adam... Well, I don't know when Adam's coming...
Should we get Adam out? Should we open the Adam...
Well, it's just...
Adam
this is very much the sort of thing that Adam
Brooks
Brooks would say. Adam would say, of course he's going to do this.
Do you know, should we not even bother having Adam? You can just... do you want to be Adam instead?
I am identical. People often get us mixed up.
OK, do your best Adam impression then. We'll throw to Adam.
This is it.
All right.
Same body.
Say something in Adam language.
No, because he's a Tottenham fan and I'm not. He's so manly. Adam is so manly. He can beat people up.
All right, shall we look?
Let's go.
Let's look at the manly Adam Brooks. Morning. Actually, afternoon, Adam. How are you?
I'm good. Can you see me?
Yeah, looking manly, as ever. There you go.
Look at him. Told you. We're
He's
exactly
like-
the same.
You're like the sort of pound shop version of him, aren't you?
And the Timu Adam
You're
Brooks.
Timu Adam Brooks. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
I'm sorry, by the way, Adam. I'm sorry.
here?
I've no idea. It's a shame you're not in the studio because it's often just mental in here. But we've got you down the line. We'll take it that way. Right, let's talk first of all about, what shall we talk about? Let's talk about pacts, the right wing, splitting the vote, what's been going on there. I mean, we've not really been in this situation before. I mean, people look back at the UKIP versus David Cameron years, but I have always said then that, you know, UKIP actually was a useful function to the Conservative Party, actually drove voters. It pulled the Conservative Party more to the right. They were very different on policy. And when it came to the ballot, people went, well, UKIP aren't going to possibly win under first past the post, so we will vote Tory. And I think it had the effect of moving the Conservative Party to where they need to be politically and ideologically. And then, you know, it was a bit of a dead duck. What we have now, though, is a real risk of the right-wing vote just being, you know, just beating itself, self-cannibalising. Should we talk about pacts pre-election? Should we talk about pacts post-election? Oh, it's also, I mean, I find it very unedifying, but I suppose we do have a situation now where we could end up with, you know, Socialist coalition in charge if we were to have a quick general election.
Yeah, is that to me?
Yes, it is to you, yeah. No, we're not going to bother letting you speak. Paul's going to do it instead. We're just going to look at you. No, please go.
Reform were in front, I think, in something like 250 polls. They were flying. Now comes along the King of the North, and suddenly that gap's closing in many polls. In one, I think they're ahead. But look, this is a honeymoon period for Labour. People voted in that by-election to get Starmer out. Even people on the right voted Labour to get rid of this most hated Prime Minister, you know, in 50-odd years. The hatred for Keir Starmer is across the left, the right and the centre, Alex. So, look, I don't read too much into it. The thing I will say is, look, I will never vote Tory again. Kemi sounds very good at the moment. A scriptwriter has got her out of a hole. Suddenly she sounds sort of prime ministerial. But let's remember about the Tories. They are full of basically Lib Dems. They're never going to get anything through. So if people want to get out of the ECHR, they want to remove us from these refugee conventions, it's not going to be via the Tories. People need to realise that. Kemi can say what she wants. The Tories are an establishment party. They will never allow it. So I do think, though, at a lower level, there's going to have to be some pacts in certain constituencies. I believe Burnham's probably going to do a deal with the Lib Dems in certain places. Maybe he's going to promise them an EU referendum or a change to the way that we vote. You know, how it's worked out up and down the country. I think the Lib Dems will take that. And that 11% maybe in the polls could help Labour see off the right. So there's got to be some sort of strategic speak. But I don't think the Tories are going to want to do that. The way Kemi's speaking, Alex, it's almost like she wouldn't deal with Nigel Farage. But for them to survive as well as a party, they're going to have to. I hope it's not needed. I think reform... I think we could see a summer of trouble and unrest in the UK, probably because of all these migrant crimes that are just continually hitting our feeds every day. And that could really hurt Andy Burnham in the polls come sort of October. So I don't think it's going to be a very long honeymoon for him. But there's so many variables here. I don't want reform to do a deal with the Tories. I hope they don't need to do it. But if the Lib Dems and Labour start, you know, getting together, if the Greens suddenly throw in the mix, then the right is in trouble because they've got the numbers to see us off. So, look, let's see how the polls go over the next few months. I don't want Nigel Farage or reform to rush into anything. I don't trust the Tories. I lost all faith in them during COVID. They've let in basically half the world whilst telling us that they're clamping down on immigration and that. So, look, and let's remember as well, Kemi talks tough about all this woke nonsense. A lot of this come to the furore and up the front under the Tories. So, look, I want something different. I think the rest of the country want change. And reform at the moment are our best option. So like, I reserve the right to see how the polls go, if and when an election is called early, and then we'll have to deal with it when it comes.
I mean, it's funny, we're talking about sort of crimes committed by migrants there. And it's amazing how quickly you become desensitised to things. How, you know, another day, another arrest, another sentencing, another report of a rape, another potential terror attack. And just yesterday, we learnt that a Somali-born British man, here we go, has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder and dangerous driving after ploughing his car into a group of pedestrians in London. 5 people were injured after his car collided with people in Ealing Broadway. That was at 2:30 yesterday. 3 were taken to hospital, 1 to a major trauma centre. No one's believed to have suffered life-threatening or life-changing injuries. Thank goodness. The police have said they're keeping an open mind on the motive, but it was not being treated as terrorism. Oh, so what might motivate you then to just drive a car into a load of pedestrians, as has happened in Germany and happens, you know, in other parts of the world? It's interesting, isn't it? Every time you get a crime like this, you know, if they don't say that the person was a Somali-born Britishman, you know that this is not, you know, Derek from Cheadle.
It's every day. You only have to look at my social medias to show that I think yesterday I put 3 foreign crimes, foreign culprits up. It's every day. And the left would rather attack people like me and Paul and yourself for highlighting this than the actual crimes that are happening. Let's remember, foreign nationals are disproportionately raping and sexually assaulting women and girls in this country. Fact. Fact check me, whoever you want. If there's any lefties watching this, fact check me, it's true. So we are importing danger to women. We're now importing people, you know, this Somali man is alleged to have done this. We're importing people that are desensitised to pure violence. You know, some of the countries they're in, they might see a decapitated head on the road. It's nothing to them. Yeah. It doesn't shock them. Yet these people now are walking amongst us, our women and our children on the streets, and we're just expecting them just to abide by our laws and act as, you know, as normal. It's not going to happen. We are importing the third world. And when you import the third world, you get the problems from the third world. Yeah. And the left can throw their arms up and go, oh, I hate the way Adam's speaking now. I wish he'd shut up. Well, I'm not going to shut up because our kids' futures are at stake here. I've got 3 children, 2 of them young girls, and I'm not going to stand by and allow our governments just to import these monsters without challenge. So look, our job, yours, Alex, Paul's, we highlight this stuff and we're going to continue to do it, and the left have got to suck it up.
We've got to keep pushing on this. And, you know, Ealing Broadway, it's interesting that this happened at Ealing Broadway, because Ealing Broadway is one of those places that, if you know the area, really demonstrates how quickly a lovely borough can fall into, you know, the wrong hands, so to speak. And what you get a lot now in parts of Ealing are rough sleepers. And I just want to talk about that with you, because we now learn that, you know, it was put out a long time ago that rough sleeping was going to be decriminalised. Well, that sounds nice, doesn't it? People can't help being homeless. They shouldn't have to face the full force of the law. What this means, I believe, is we are going to start seeing these sort of encampments of migrants who, you know, should be deported, people who have come here illegally, who have evaded the authorities, slipped through the cracks, then all of a sudden living in sort of, you know, tent cities, people who are riven with drug issues and complex mental health problems. And we're going to see, I think, like you've seen in parts of New York, parts, you know, the big American cities, parts of Ohio, I think now rough sleeping's been decriminalised. That is what we're going to start having on the British streets.
It's horrifying. I mean, you only have to look at parts of Paris. You know, that could be anywhere in the world, just not a Western country. Our countries are falling fast, and our government seems to encourage it. Why would you do this? I mean, we are going to start seeing tent cities spring up all across the country now. And you've got to look at this government and think, you're either idiots or you're doing this on purpose. And I now lean towards, you can't be this stupid. They're doing this on purpose. So the question is, why? And I believe it's to get us as angry as possible, make things as bad as possible, and then you usher in almost like a communist state. And that's what I think we're heading towards. These socialists are pushing the boundaries further and further. And as soon as it gets so bad, you're going to have actual citizens with brains say, you know what, we need you to control our lives more. We need more rules. We need more laws. And it's like a breakdown of society. And it always seems to happen under the left, doesn't it, Alex?
Yeah.
They always push this way. Right-wing governments want people to aspire to be better for themselves. They want people to earn more money, pay more tax. You know, they want a clean country. The left seem to want everyone on benefits. They want to control them, and they want the country to look like a hellhole. And that is what is going to happen with this country. Under Labour, if you vote left at the next election, you're going to see this country become a complete hellhole.
Yeah, final nail in coffin territory, I would suggest.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Shabana Mahmood's new open border scheme. At one point, she looked like she was going to start getting real with dealing with some of our issues. One of the most right-wing people, some might say, within the cabinet of the current government. But it seems now, in trying to sort of, sidle up to Andy Burnham and keep her job, she is putting in place, well, basically pages out of the Fabian Society's policy papers, which is these safe and legal routes for asylum seekers. Now, in theory, the schemes will be capped, but the fact that they are putting into the hands of charities or community groups or, educational organisations, the ability to say, oh, we're going to bring this person over here from this country. There's so many red flags here. So many red flags.
Look, they're trolling us. I believe Labour are trolling us. Shabana Mahmood, if I've said her name correctly there, she acts tough. She talks tough. But what has she actually done that has tackled this immigration and illegal immigration problem? Nothing. Let's remember, I think it was about 10 years ago, she was in Greece waving refugees through. We know what her personal views are. We know she's not trying to stop this. And look, we do not need any more asylum seekers. I'm going to spell this out now. People say I'm harsh. Shut the asylum system. I don't want any more of them. I want, the hundreds of thousands that are already on the waiting list. I want to ship them off to Rwanda. I do not want them here. Enough women and children have been targeted now. Look, if there is a child that needs help, I'm not heartless. Yes, let's help the child. Let's help a woman from a war-torn country. But these fighting-age men, I do not want them here. I want them deported. I want to shut our borders until Brits are put first. We have Brits that can't get on the housing ladder, cannot get social housing. And look, if my kids ever fall on hard times in the future, they're never going to get a council house. No. Impossible. Yeah, if you come over on a dinghy or you decide, oh, look, I live in the hills of Pakistan, I'm going to go over to Britain on a fake visa, which they all do, right? Then after a few months, they're not working. They get benefits for the rest of their lives. And it's us that's paying for it. They get a house, by the way. There's no way this government does not let a foreign national, especially from one of these third world type countries, not have a house. So, Brits are put at the back of the queue. This country is falling massively. And these are charlatans. Whatever they say is a lie. Remember the one in, one out scheme?
Oh, yeah. What happened to that? That worked, didn't it?
That was all over the headlines. And even people I knew got, look, they're getting tough, one in, one out. And I went, you watch. Yeah. It's not going to work.
Smash the gangs didn't do that, did they?
They didn't do that.
What do you make of this? What do you make of this? I'm looking forward to winding up the Adam machine and watching it go. Apparently, Sir Keir Starmer wants to become the NATO Secretary-General when the post becomes vacant in 2028. What do you think about that?
Hate him. Can't stand the man. I'd like him to go and move abroad. But no, I don't want him in charge of anything that could control our military or influence where we go to war. This is a man, when asked by Emily Maitlis, Westminster or Davos, he went Davos. This man is a globalist. He's a puppet for those pulling the strings around the world. And if he gets anywhere near NATO, God help us, because this is a man, I think you said earlier, that wanted to actively prosecute our own armed forces. He's a horrible, disgusting man. And look, I wouldn't trust him anywhere. And if he's made something to do with the UN or NATO and it affects us, we're in trouble. And we will need a right-wing government next time because, again, I keep saying it, we've got a few years or it's completely game over for Britain.
I agree.
It's great to hear it. I just knew Adam was going to say something like that on that. With regards to the 1 in, 1 out, by the way, that I hear is going to just be removed in September. I think that particular deal ends in September, and they're just going to get rid of it. And Adam's been saying this since day dot. That was never going to work. It doesn't work. It was just playing at politics, and we are the victims once again.
Yeah, it's true. Adam, my darling, thank you ever so much for gracing our screens with your presence. Isn't he wonderful? Ever been to his boozer?
I have.
Have you?
I have been to his. I've met his mum, and if you like Adam, you will love his mum. This is a wonderful, salt of the earth East End girl. I'll tell you, she was
proper lass.
I just felt very comfortable in her presence. She reminded me of people in my family down in Portsmouth. You know, wise women.
We should organise some sort of big, right-wing summer party at Adam's pub.
He'd love it. I mean,
he'd love it, yeah.
Do you know, at one point, Adam was talking about having a bit of a celebration when Starmer stepped down, but it hasn't really been spoken about a tremendous amount, but Starmer stepping down and Andy Burnham coming in and the backdrop of the Makerfield, it kind of took all the energy out of it. It doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like we're now preparing ourselves for something slightly worse. It would have been great if he'd just stepped down in, complete dishonour and just went on his merry way, and we could have had a few drinks at Adam's pub, the Three Colts in... escapes me now, on the London-Essex border, beginning with B. Anyway, look at his social media. No, none of those. Absolutely none of those. It'll come to me in a minute.
Let's play name places in Essex, beginning with B.
But anyway, it is a great little boozer. It's in a suburban housing area, and it's just a proper good pub. Good food, good beer, and Adam's there occasionally.
Hey, what more could you want? Although, can I just say, unreliable party friend you are.
I know.
You missed out on Sausage and Cider Festival
I would have loved to.
It was epic.
Brilliant. I got offered some extra work yesterday. I took it because, I need it. And what I knew is the two weren't compatible. I couldn't do half measures. You can't go out with Alex Phillips and Dean.
You can't go out with Dean without getting
and just go,
mortal.
Oh, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to have half a cider and half a sausage, and then I'm going to go to work. That just would not have worked.
No.
So I had to choose one or the other.
Yeah, we had Samara there, and Samara's...
of course, Samara's there.
Samara's there. So it's just Dean and me and Samara is living his best life.
Yeah, I mean, Dean would have loved that.
We all bought cowboy hats and, I don't know, just went a bit mad.
It just looked... And I saw the video, and, I saw the video at, like, 1 o'clock this morning after a day of work and thinking... I was just thinking to myself, I could have done with some socialising today. Yeah, and then I saw Phillips and Dean and... just enjoying the lovely time, sausage everywhere.
I can't wait for you to come visit me down the Shire.
I'm coming.
The stories are going to be mad. I've got to take you down the local pub, meet all the characters. You'll love it. Right, OK, let us take a short break. If you want to talk to us, we would love to talk to you. So please do call, because it's your normal network rate and all of that. 0344 499 1000. And the lovely Kira is bracing herself to take down your details and then patch you through to the studio. You can also use that number to send a WhatsApp message, a voice note, a haiku, a limerick, a rap.
Yeah.
A noise.
A poem. A love letter.
A song.
What else?
I'd like a song.
A hum.
A hum, yeah.
Could you hum?
Some ominous, heavy horror movie breathing.
Right, OK.
Don't do that.
No.
Imagine that if we've got, someone's patched it.
Yeah, because the Wally's in there would just play it through to us.
It'd be quite interesting. Anyway, please don't do that. Maybe do. 87222 is the number to send a text message right the word talk before you text. We're back just after this.
got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back to the show. We haven't done this story yet, and I don't like this story, but I hate it enough to want to do it. You know, that sort of love-hate thing that you get with a dreadful headline.
We've both built careers on it.
Yeah. Love to hate, hate to love.
Yeah.
Love to
Sounds
love,
like the
hate
start
to
of
hate.
a song that we...
I'm not making any more songs. No more composition of rap. No more songs, because that's what I was accidentally playing when I had to chuck the phone like a grenade out of the office, playing my sort of like AI rap song.
I'm telling you, the bits in between the actual Ofcom broadcasting
This is the way they would make extra money on this channel, if they sort of said to people, you can actually watch like live output from the advert breaks on a specific sort of, dark web channel.
Basically, it's just me doing press-ups.
Yeah, Ratty comes in, the characters in there sometimes come in and join us.
They do. They say...
All the nicknames come out.
They say things like, do better, but I've never really understood what that meant. Do it better. What you said you were good at this, when are we going to see that? They say things like that, and I'm really confused by it. But anyway, I think I'm doing a great job.
I think you're doing an amazing job. That's why we have you back. Well, mainly because you're my mate and I like you.
Yes.
I don't like people who don't like sitting in my studio with me. Not on my time. Right, let's have a read of this, because this is blimmin' dystopian. OK, so apparently the EU wants to create satellites, stick some, junk up in space, which will be technology that will then sort of intervene with your speed limit and force you to slow down to 20 miles per hour. Now, while I kind of slightly care for this on one reason, I hate it for another. The reason I slightly care for it is because I hate the 20-mile-per-hour zones. You cannot. It's really hard with a modern combustion engine to slow your car down to 20 miles per hour and stick within a 10% +1 margin.
Yeah.
Unless you're literally staring at your speedometer, which means you are not looking at what's going on in the road, in your mirrors, you're ploughing down toddlers, cyclists, all the rest of it, because you're just like, I can't go over 20. And I've always thought, if this is just a cash cow, fine. Apply some penalty, some financial penalty. Oh, you've gone over 20, you've now got to pay the, whatever, 100 quid. Don't put 3 points on the licence. I think there's 1 million Brits who are going to get banned this year alone for getting up to 12 points because of 20-mile-per-hour zones.
Yeah, I've got...
So on the one hand, there'd be no excuse. You wouldn't be able to fine people anymore. If the technology just intervened, it's like, oh, well, that points on licence for speeding thing kind of goes away, and no one likes that. I've got quite a few.
Yeah,
points. Points don't win prizes.
I went on a course. 24 and a 20 in Putney in London.
24.
Down a hill. I know exactly where it is now. Look, I do a lot of driving in London, and a lot of it's sort of out of hours, and it's very difficult. And what I've found is on the roads I know, look, I'll go 30 miles an hour and then slow down for the 20. Sue me. But what I do know is when you don't know the roads, all the other people, like the Uber drivers and that...
Yeah.
Come on, get out of the way.
But you're getting into such a... Because I had this, I kept getting... I got a couple of 20s in London, and you genuinely don't know. And it's like, you're like, oh, my gosh, have I just broke it? You're not doing it intentionally. You're not trying to drive dangerously. It's completely unintentional for the most part. And so in that regard, if you want to play the games of let's throw speed limits in everywhere, then right, just intervene directly and slow my car down for me, because then you can't find me. And so on that level, I'm for it. But on another level, it is, dystopian.
And who likes the... I mean, by the way, one of the safest things is having the driver be competent and manage the vehicle.
Yeah.
It cannot be considered safe to have an external entity via a satellite controlling your car because they believe in their complete and utter social construct that you're not doing the thing you should be
and
doing.
then all of a sudden, if the systems fail, kind of puts me in mind of the most recent Formula One race where the speed pot...
You're in a case of the cocksies.
Yeah, I've got a case of... Anyway, the thing that regulates your speed down the pit lane weren't working properly. So there you go. Sometimes technology fails. Should we do a call?
Yeah, I love talking to people.
Do you want to talk to Grace?
Is it really Grace?
It's the Grace. See you,
Yes,
mate.
please. Hey, Grace.
Hi,
how you
Grace.
doing?
Hiya.
Hi. I'm very blessed, thank you. How are you?
Very well. Happy Sunday to you, my darling. What's on your mind?
Well, firstly, just briefly, I wanted to thank you the other day for how, when I was talking about Christianity and how it's not primarily about tradition, you then brought up its connections with science. And I just loved that you did that because I really feel very strongly about science and God. And so I loved that you made that segue, and I really appreciated that.
Oh, thank you.
But I'd also called in about this Hacked Off campaign, which I've not looked at in enough detail, so I probably ought to read more about it. But I just thought we should probably keep in mind that there's a bit of a distinction to be made between holding politicians or even celebrities to account and hacking the phones of people who have been the victims of crimes.
Oh, absolutely. There were things that happened in the phone hacking scandal that were scandalous, frankly speaking.
Exactly. So, like I say, I've not looked into enough detail about what the campaign is calling for, but I think it's going to be very difficult to have a perfect ecosystem for press and free speech, but there probably should be some delineation between actually supporting the privacy of individuals, particularly when they've been affected by the horrors that, Millie Dowler's family, for example, were afflicted with, and actually scrutinising people who are in the public eye because they are very rich and famous or powerful. And so we need to kind of maybe make some distinction there.
But do we not already have legislation that does this? Because, when I was at journalism school, one of the things you had to learn was one's rights to a private life, which comes from EU legislation, ECHR legislation, actually. And then a journalist, what's in the public interest. We can go and do this or do some covert filming in a certain place because this story needs to get out there, or you cannot because you are impacting or infringing upon someone's right to privacy, and actually the balance against this being in the public interest just isn't there. We have a lot of legislation already, including criminal law, to cover this stuff. And so my worry is when you start adding legislation onto things like the print press or coming up with some sort of state regulator, that it becomes one tool too many. And I regard this in the same way with human rights legislation. OK? Or, the sort of legislation that is akin to things that relate to identity. Because it shouldn't be the case. A crime is a crime, right? Whether it's committed by a black person, a white person, against a black person or a white person. I feel like you don't need all this. Whenever you create extra legislation, extra regulation, what happens is it tends to then be weaponised, usually against the victim and in protection of the perpetrator. And I do worry when it comes to regulating what we have a very robust, dynamic, open, free print press in the United Kingdom, and it's something we should be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the things that's really significant here is how the media landscape has changed so rapidly, and it's going to be very difficult for anyone to have rules that can be used to regulate social media as well as the press. And so even if the press were to be regulated in a certain way, whether it were correctly or incorrectly, you could still have things coming out on social media. But also, I think sometimes I wonder if some celebrities who don't like certain things appearing about them in the media, and I'm not specifically referring to Hugh Grant, but anyone who's in the public eye, all of our actions matter. I think that God knows what we do, even if no one else knows what it is. I know that other people will not believe that God is there watching, and I believe he loves us, even though we make mistakes. But I think we might want to think, I can just cover this thing up. But actually, our words and actions matter, and so we shouldn't just be thinking, how can I hide this? We should actually be thinking, words have real power, and our actions have importance, and we should kind of think about our conscience or guidance about good behaviour, not just about trying to hide hide things, because if everyone's just trying to cover up what they've done, then that's not necessarily the best way forward, and that's a different thing from breaching the privacy
No,
of people
I
who are
agree. You know,
victims.
having that sort of internal dialogue that us Christians have is a very important feature. If only there were more of us, right? Grace, thank you ever so much. It's always charming speaking to you.
I feel enriched every time we have Grace on.
I feel enriched, yeah.
I mean, I love the way she says, I'm very blessed, thank you, because she's very grateful for her existence, much thanks to God. And that immediately I'm like, oh,
warm, fuzzy,
this is just straight away like someone who's grateful to be alive.
Hey!
Which is fantastic. Yeah, she makes some incredibly good points there. I always try to actually steer away from giving words too much power, because when you give words too much power, people will control the words to control the power, and we get stuck in this sort of this psycho loop of, well, if you can have words, but you can only have these words, because these words are these aren't helpful to the regime.
Yeah, oh, this combination of letters is bad, and if you say it, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
No, I hate that sort of thing. Right, let's take a short break now. When we come back, we're joined by the fantastic Jennifer Ewing, who's spokesperson for Republicans overseas. We're going to be talking about the fact that it's all back on, it seems, in Iran. There have been bombs overnight. Missed all the fun, didn't I? Wasn't there to watch them screaming over my back garden. Never mind. Hopefully they'll be at it tonight. Woohoo! President Donald Trump as well has decried communism in a fiery 400-word tirade, invoking rhetoric reminiscent of the McCarthy era. I love it. Time to get those commies. We're going to be joined by the brilliant Jennifer just after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
What on earth is going on in this studio? You're going to have to keep me full screen. But actually, no, do you know what? Let's get the cameras on. Look at all these creatures just crawling around on the floor. I feel like I'm involved in some sort of kindergarten. It's like bring your kids to school. There goes Kira, off she goes. At one point you have Matt and Kira, just little heads bobbing around under the desk over there.
There's a lot going on in here.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes. You couldn't really see them, which was a shame, because
we could be making this whole thing up the whole time. There's no one else here to tell.
Disinformation.
Are they in the room with us right now? These,
can't you see them? He's here.
Jennifer, great to have you here. Where do you want to begin? Let's talk first of all about Iran, because, you know, is there a ceasefire? Is it not? Iran started targeting ships going through the Strait of Hormuz quite predictably. You can't negotiate with a terrorist. You cannot do deals with Iran. If the last 20 years has taught us anything, it is that. And so Donald Trump has warned he's going to unleash hell. No, actually, Iran's warned that they're going to unleash hell on US bases, and Trump warns the regime will no longer exist. So there you go. Peace in our time. Didn't last long.
Well, I think this is just the growing pains of the MOU, and you're going to see that the vice president is kind of playing good cop to Trump's bad cop and all of the rhetoric. So there's rhetoric, and then there's actually the actions, both on the Iranian side and the US side, which were quite measured, right? So this isn't like going back into full conflict. I think you'll probably see a few of these as we work into the MOU really coming into action, which is, of course, what we want, because we need this to end.
So do you actually think that the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, could actually hold? Because my concern is this, that, you know, really, when you start walking down a street, you want to get to the end of it, it, and Donald Trump has sort of stopped halfway along and said, oh, we can do a deal, when originally he was, you know, the one who wanted to tear up the JCPOA. And he did the right thing. In my opinion, he did the right thing by basically making sure that Iran cannot launch surface-to-air missiles, that they don't have intercontinental ballistic missiles, that they can't make a dirty bomb, enrich uranium, all the rest of it. Things which would give them an incredible amount of power for a deeply frightening, toxic, Islamist, hostile regime. But now we're in a position where, you know, you can negotiate with someone from the Iranian government, but the IRGC have got their own agenda. Does he not now essentially have to finish what he started, whatever that might look like?
He doesn't have the option to do that. He doesn't have a mandate to do that. The United States will never go with troops on the ground. There is no military option that is workable. So unfortunately, we took the actions we did in February, which a lot of Americans are not happy with. So therefore, he's got to get out of this as quickly and with as least damage to.
Do you think he was
the
right
party.
Starting it in the first place, then?
No.
You don't?
No.
You're not of the...
No,
the view that
absolutely
he
not.
should have-
I'm part of the, you know, big, actually, Trump coalition that voted for no new wars that were not existential to the United States, especially in the Middle East. And we obliterated everything in June, and apparently we went back for more than in February, but he has to back out of this because the people of the United States are not willing to allow the Democrats, and as we've seen, they're not even Democrats these days, they're Democrat socialists, come back into power for the things we voted on, which were, you know, close the border. We still have a lot of people to deport and get the economy back on track. That is impossible if we are completely distracted in a Middle East quagmire. So it's time we're reversing out of it. You can feel it. And if Trump is going to have to send out more bombastic tweets, that's fine, because J.D. Vance is the one who's saying, hey, you know, we struck back just after, which was the right thing to do, you know, violence with violence, but it's measured, and now let's get back to this MOU and ensure that it works.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm very supportive of the intervention, and because I just think that, you know, the idea of Iran being able to develop a nuclear weapon was unconscionable. We could never have allowed that to happen. And where we had the intelligence constantly saying they're 2 weeks away, they're 2 weeks away, they always were, you know, imminently about to be able, you know, it's not a chance you want to take. I personally would rather, whenever I hear overnight, you know, they've targeted, you know, a military radar system or some missile launch areas, I'm like, why didn't you do those in the first? Like, just get them all done. Don't do civilians, don't do towns, don't do civilian infrastructure, but anything military where they can launch missiles, launch drones, attack shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, flatten it.
Well, and if the ideal is for the civilians to choose their next leader, we can't continue to destroy, you know, civilian infrastructure. Yeah. So it's tricky, and again, no good choices here, but we are where we are.
We are where we are. Now let's talk about this speech. I love it when Donald Trump writes amazing things. It was actually a Truth Social post Friday afternoon. He loves to get a socialists and communists and characterise them as animals, who he claims violently oppose religion, casting them as the most significant threat the United States has ever faced. And the outburst appeared to be a response to this week's primary elections, during which a string of progressives emerged victorious in New York City, including 3 candidates backed by the New York mayor, Zoran Mamdani, 2 who identify as democratic socialists. It's interesting because you were just saying this. So he wrote, communism is very easy to sell. I'd be the greatest communist in history. I'd give free rent, free houses, free food, everything is free. Unfortunately, after 2 or 3 years, the country where this is taking place would fail. It always does, and then you'll start living in squalor. It's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, we talk about the Cold War as if it's something in the past. We just gave up fighting the communists. We started electing them instead, as far as I can tell.
It feels that way.
Well, I mean, and again, this is exactly what the people who voted for Trump want him to be talking about. You know, he says these godless communists. Technically, they're not communists. You know, they are, you know, they're Democrat socialists. But you mentioned that they're progressive. In one case, they beat, because this was a Democrat primary, so they were running against their own party. And in one case, they beat a really progressive guy called Dan Goldman. So this is like the other end of progressivism. Again, this is what America loves to hear from Trump, because we do have some enemies within. But it shouldn't be surprising, because if people, usually on the left, have been telling other Americans, your country is bad, you know, and we've done bad things, and we should be ashamed of our past, and so on and so forth, people are going to believe that. Yeah. And then you have a situation, unfortunately, where the current economy is not working for everybody, right? So those of us who are capitalists can go, okay, this is great. But the younger generation, you know, they're living at home until, you know, they're much older. They can't get on the housing ladder. Therefore, they don't feel secure enough to get married and have kids and all of this sort of thing. So it's self-fulfilling. And so a conversation needs to be had of what's going wrong in our capitalist system that has caused these kids to turn against it.
You know, harking back to the Cold War, there's a brilliant article actually by Boris Johnson the other day in the Daily Mail where he talks about left-wing Chinese psyops with, you know, TikTok, and says it's amazing how much these social media platforms can be manipulated to mass brainwash. We saw it during COVID. We know that it happens with bot farms, with algorithms. We know how effective it is as well. And it's, you know, when you look at the anti-Western axis, they are still the communist countries. We're looking at Russia, we're looking at China, we're looking at North Korea, a little bit of Iran, whatever that is when it comes to that spectrum. But it's still the same, and they are still using the same old tactics of psyops and disinformation. But we stopped fighting back, and I actually think sort of reshaping this, calling it what it is, calling it fighting communism again, would actually go quite far in people stopping adopting these things, where we're being force-fed these ideas of cultural relativism and hating the West and, you know, post-colonialism, critical race theory, all of those mad things which are being deliberately propagated and seeded within our academic institutions, within our societies, to degrade our social harmony, to divide us. So we need to start calling it out for what it is. I'm wholly in support of this.
The thing about this that always is very confusing, if you look at it enough, is the very people that often talk about empowerment, maybe it's a feminist movement, a wave of feminism, you know, empowering women. They are also aligned with social democrats or communism, but also they forget that very politics is taking the power away from the individual. We're not empowering people via communism. All the power is with the leaders, and you are just given free things and work and told that is enough for you. Whereas everything else is actually capitalism. Empowerment comes through capitalism. We invest in people. We say, here's a certain amount, here's a petri dish to work within, and you can grow as far as you want to grow. The only time it really falls over is when it gets a little bit mixed up with the class system, particularly in the UK, where people can sort of start saying things like, well, you can't progress beyond your station. And this is where the US is very different. But I think a lot of people misunderstand what communism is, and it's back to this kindness thing. It's been repackaged and resold.
But it's this sort of cultural neo-Marxism that's been pumped into our academic institutions, lanyardism. It's what's led to two-tier police. It's what has led to our military being underfunded, because it's seen as sort of, you know, patriarchal, masculine, toxic, and all the rest of it. You know, the woke mind virus, kids having their genitals mutilated. All of this stuff comes back down to this sort of mad neo-Marxist cult that, you know, 50 years ago, we really did identify as the most toxic thing in the world. And now, like I said, it's, you know, we've turned a blind eye to it, and we can see, you know, sometimes a country can fight you in grey zone warfare. They don't need bombs, they don't need guns. All they need is a load of bots. Well, and they can mess your society up from the inside out.
And it's not going to work, right? Like, so for keeping with the New York theme, which is where the 3 DSA candidates won their Democrat primaries this week, and Zohran Mamdani, the mayor who was elected, you know, in a very popular way, he's now mentioning rent controls. So you've got all of these people going, this is fantastic, isn't this wonderful, because my rent in New York City is extraordinarily expensive. Well, I mean, nobody's thinking this through, you know, and the economic illiteracy, which again, go back to the schools, right? Certain, like, leftist ideology would like a population that's economically illiterate. We all know that rent controls do not work, right? Because they're going to take the landlords out of the system, and then everybody's rent goes up. So, you know, if communism worked, It would.
Yeah,
It
point
would
to
be
me,
happening
point to
in
me
more
a successful
countries.
communist state.
Yeah.
Where is it?
There isn't any, is there? I
It's
mean, I know
interesting.
it's old adage, but there just simply isn't an example of where it's worked longer than for about
Some
3
people
minutes.
might point at, you know, China and their GDP, but that's because they try and force everyone else to have sort of mad communist ideologies while they get on them, you know, extreme capitalism.
They
over in
exactly.
Beijing.
They love a bit of capitalism,
They love
over
capitalism
there.
in Beijing these
The
days.
place is booming, you know,
Yeah.
in a certain regard. So that's not sheer
So
capitalism
true.
either.
Amanda sent a message saying, "Thank you, Alex, for bringing up the subject." Well, it wasn't me, it was Donald Trump. You know, can't take credit for that, can I? The country must be made aware and wake up to the fact the left wing are hell-bent on leading the country towards the hellhole of a communist state. Wake up. I agree. Time we got serious about this stuff again.
Yeah.
OK, we've got to take a little break and then it's going to be the last 10 minutes of the show, so you don't want to miss those, do you? Come back.
We've got some breaking news that has just come in. talkSPORT have announced a brand new partnership in a developing story. We hear they've created So Good Lager right in time for football's big summer. Just in, we're hearing that So Good Lager will be pouring pints across all O'Neill's pubs and some of the best sports pubs across the UK. With the big kickoff just around the corner, you can find out where to get your hands on a fresh pint of So Good Lager at talksport.com/lager.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Now, Jennifer started telling us good stuff, interesting stuff. And I was like, don't waste it during the advert break. Let's spend it on air. Let's share it with the audience. You were talking about Sarah Rogers, who recently made a speech at ARC. She is the department... What's her title?
Well, she's what's called the undersecretary.
That's it, undersecretary.
The State Department.
But she's basically here to spy on the UK and Europe and make sure we don't do mad left-wing things.
Well, that's a little bit of a cynical way of looking at it, but she has taken the UK sort of a really serious interest in the UK when it comes to, you know, the rape gangs, when it comes to free speech violations, when it comes to unfettered migration, and because she cares, right? It's the same reason why people say, oh, what is the vice president or the president, you know, comment negatively about the UK, and it's because they care. If the UK was some random country in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, back to Secretary Sarah Rogers. She gave a speech, as you just said, Alex, at ARC conference this week, which is the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. It's kind of a right-leaning, conservative...
Christian.
Davos, yes, very Christian, very family-oriented. And she started out bringing up a lot of the things that a lot of people who watch the news in this country or spend time online know about, you know, people getting arrested for free speech violations or unfettered immigration. Or she brings up, you know, the little boy that was chucked in the alligator pit. I mean, she's very up to date with her information.
Oh, she's watching.
Right? She's. You're right, Alex. She's watching. And she goes into then saying, gives examples, 4 or 5 examples of where the United States was, say, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, i.e. under the Joe Biden administration, whether it comes to an open border, rather, and up to, you know, by anyone's estimation, 15 to 20 million illegal people coming through. And she said, our political will changed. So she goes through this, you know, the negatives about what's going on in the UK, and then she puts it against, hey, we had a lot of negatives too, including some free speech issues around the 2020 election, the Hunter Biden laptop, COVID-19, a lot of these things, and said, as soon as the people woke up, you know, and elected the right people, the country's back on track. And she says, because the people of the United Kingdom are great people, she knows that this ship can be turned around as well.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because you know, America is in many respects the test case. Other European countries that we hoped might have been the test case, like Maloney in Italy, haven't been able to be because they're in the EU.
Yeah.
Whereas what we have seen really in America under Trump is all of those crises that America was facing, that we in the UK are facing or about to face, and starting to be unpicked. And it's a slow process. There have been those sort of violent outbreaks of opposition, particularly the anti-ICE protests. My understanding is they've calmed down a lot now, that people are just sort of, you know, the energy's been taken out of that particular movement. But, you know, what is so reassuring, the difficulty, of course, in the UK is we don't have a president with executive powers. We will have all sorts of, you know, Supreme Courts and treaties and obligations that are going to make things difficult. But it can be turned around.
It can be turned around, and I think that's why the U.S. is coming down so hard, including what the president said yesterday about the Digital Services Act, you know, with regard to the tech companies, and, you know, whether people are saying, oh, we're doing this to, you know, Online Safety Act, or, you know, to protect the children, or the under-16 ban. Well, no, I think it's probably so people can't actually see what's going on in this country, you know, and because once people do realize what's going on in the country, that's when they get organized, and that's when they say, hey, we're not turning our fabulous country over to a bunch of, you know, whack jobs. So, which, of course, they tried to do, you know, in the U.S., and Elon bought Twitter.
I still think what is utterly mad, right, what I think is just utterly astonishing, is the fact that for so long we had a demented president in America, autopen, and, you know, it wasn't functioning, he could barely speak, walk, half the time he was asleep, and, you know, and everyone's just like, yeah, there you go, that's what we do now, the left wing in America. And again, like, when crazy things like that happen on the left, we're all expected to just forget it and move on, rather than go, well, that was crazy.
It was cognitive dissonance beyond anything we'd seen before, really, because we were all expected to look at that and go, well, it's okay. It's just, you know, he's just a wise old man in the autumn of his years, and these things happen to us all, without us being able to say the next sentence, which is, yeah, sure, but he cannot be in charge of the world's biggest superpower. I mean, you look, with regards to Biden and Trump, they're only a year in age difference, I think.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump looks like, by comparison, a 25-year-old. He really does. And we talked about our political will earlier. We are starting to build momentum with regards to political will. But I still think, and I think I said this to you last Sunday, a lot of the normies, a lot of those disengaged with politics day to day because they've got lives, they're getting on with their families and their jobs, they still don't see the problems being perpetuated by the left, and the left are able to say enough things to keep them on side.
Yeah.
We need to win over those normies on the right.
But don't you think that a lot of that is about the re-demonisation, essentially, of communism, you know, of extreme left-wingery? In the same way that we keep hearing, don't we, from the left, is that mischaracterisation of anything that's common sense politics being far-right, being Nazi, being fascist.
Yeah.
And what we have a problem with in the West is not this fictional far-right, although it is emerging. It's emerging in response to extreme leftism. That is the point. It is a consequence of something else entirely, and we're not fighting the far left. You know, we're platforming it. We're enabling it. We are essentially condoning it. We are, you know, allowing it to run riot through our institutions, through our, you know, academic sites, through our government, through the civil service, through the unions, through, you know, public services. And once upon a time, like I said, it was the enemy. We know it's the enemy. It is doing so much damage, and I think we need to start using, in the way that the left wing use the language, you know, to demonise the right, we need to get real about fighting the radical left.
Yeah, and you know what? You just brought up a great point, Paul, about people who are not necessarily politically interested. That is how Trump won, right? Because in addition to going on political shows, he went on the Joe Rogans, he went on the, you know, Vice President Vance went on Tim Dillon, you know, where they're Theo Von, exactly, these non-political people who are like, oh, this makes sense. I mean, everything these days, we've seen this week, becomes politicized. How is air conditioning a political... It's now a right-wing issue, apparently, in this country.
Mad.
It's absolutely mad. And so, you know, free speech